Order. Supervisor McCarthy, you deliver an invocation for us, please, sir.
If you'll please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we ask you to guide us this evening in our deliberations. Help us to consider our county's business with prudence and wisdom. We thank you for the many blessings you continue to bestow on our nation and our county in particular. We ask that you watch over and protect our men and women who serve our community and our nation, whether as first responders, military, or simply as volunteers for the benefit of their neighbors. Help us to grow stronger as a community, and may we never forget to treat one another as we would have them treat us. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Chairman Lofton, you lead us in the pledge, please.
Would you stand and face the flag for our pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes?
Mr. Chairman, we had a request from the applicant for the conditional use permit number 0718 to postpone that.
Yes, sir. I think that's Gainsborough.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
it'd be my preference not to postpone that at this time.
All right. Others on the board have a view?
I concur.
I concur.
A consent, we will not.
I'm fine with it.
We had no other changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve as recommended.
Heard the motions, are second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is adopted as presented. Consent agenda.
We had no changes.
How would the board like to handle the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Heard the motions, there second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Consent agenda is adopted as presented. That will bring us to citizen comments. Agenda items that are not subject to a public hearing. Did anyone sign up?
Robin Rennick, please sign up, and I believe that will be in relation to the public hearing items, so.
Okay, so your comments would be best heard during the public hearing? Okay? All right. Board of Supervisors comments, are there any? County officials report to the board by Site Manager, Cedar Creek Belgrove National Historic Park. Welcome, we're very happy to have you with us.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, do you remember where you were on January 31st, 2003? Seems like a pretty random date, I realize that, and you're probably asking, why in the world would I ask about that date? And I can tell you that I was standing on Bell Grove on that very cold January day, dedicating a new national park. That national park is now 15 years old. Cedar Creek and Bell Grove, we kicked off our anniversary in December with a cake in our visitor contact station and driving in the Middletown Christmas parade. The park, which you can see the map here, located in Frederick, Warren, and Shenandoah counties, is 3,700 acres. And when it was established, was very unique within the National Park Service. And this was because hardly any of the land within the park is actually owned by the Park Service. Why are we unique? We are a partnership park. The National Park Service works with 5 partners, including the Cedar Creek Battlefield Foundation, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Shenandoah County, the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation, and Bell Grove, and I'd like to recognize that the Executive Director of Bell Grove, Kristen Lays, is here tonight. And together we provide a seamless visitor experience. We have preserved and protected over half of this area in the park and tell the rich stories of the Shenandoah Valley, as we like to say, from backcountry to breadbasket to battlefield and beyond. I'd like to share some of our recent accomplishments. A National Park Service team specializing in exotic plant management has targeted specific exotic invasive plants at Belle Grove and the National Park Service for treatment. We've gathered steam in our development and are putting stakes into the ground, literally. This spring, the park partnered with the Greater Appalachian Valley Conservation Corps, a group engaging youth in conservation service projects, to install our orientation kiosks, trailhead panels, and interpretive signs throughout the park at Hupp's Hill Museum, on National Park Service and partner properties, as well as in the VDOT right-of-way. These were over 20 much-needed signs that we consider critical infrastructure for our visitors. Last fall, we launched preservation activities on the historic Bowman Height House located in Warren County. The site is an excellent example of the regional architecture of Germanic settlers and was a witness structure to the Confederate attack on the Union at Battle of Cedar Creek. Work is being done to restore the historic windows, the doors, and the masonry. Belle Grove continues to conduct archaeological surveys, and this year the National Park Service conducted surveys at 2 sites, either for research purposes or anticipation of future development. We have other projects that have not been launched, or excuse me, have been launched but not in the public eye. We've launched 2 new research projects. The first is a study focusing on the early land use and agricultural patterns in the lower Shenandoah Valley. And the second is a study of the African American experience from early settlement through the Civil War and beyond. With the help of school children, master gardeners, and master naturalists, we've developed and planted several pollinator gardens at park headquarters. And we would love to partner with schools to maintain and use them as educational tools on the importance of native plants and the pollinators that use them. Last fall, we launched a Ranger in the Classroom program and have increased the number of offerings we have for in-park education programming. Last summer, an a National Park Service crew cleaned and treated the 128th New York Monument. And with this work, we have cleaned or restored all 3 of the Veteran Place monuments within the park. This map shows where we're hoping to install signs for our auto tour directional signage. Right now, we have an auto tour, and essentially the visitors are scrambling to try to figure out where they're supposed to go. So we are working on this. This is our draft design. We're getting very, very close to having this implemented. The arrows will point them in the direction where they're supposed to make the turns, and the larger signs let them know where to stop. And many of those stops correlate to the earlier signs, those way signs that you saw installed by that youth corps. So we're actually going to mirror all of these things and link them up. Our plans for development include expanding our trail system beyond those that are existing, including the 1.7-mile morning attack trails located behind the park headquarters. And here you see footbridges constructed by the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club to extend the 19th Corps Entrenchment Trail onto Belle Grove's property. The National Park Service also engaged the Greater Appalachian Valley Conservation Corps to work in partnership with the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation to develop a new trail at Thoburn's Redoubt in Warren County. This trail will allow the public to see a set of preserved Union entrenchments constructed before the Battle of Cedar Creek. In addition to these accomplishments, we have a number of terrific events and programs scheduled for the year, including our History at Sunset, which features programs about the Civil War, the geology of the lower Shenandoah Valley, and the complicated road to freedom for Emmanuel Jackson. The program this Friday evening looks at the forgotten story of the Bowman Height farmstead. And of course, we will be participating in the Frederick County Civil War weekend. We're hosting a star party in partnership with the Shenandoah Astronomical Society on August 11th for the Perseid meteor shower. And we are very excited. Belle Grove and the National Park Service are partnering on a special event. It's the first time we've ever done this. It'll be held in November, and it will be done to educate and enlighten the public on the experience of the enslaved population at Belle Grove. The family-friendly event will include living history, National Park Service ranger programs, and more. We hope you will all join us for all or some of our programs. Come to our visitor contact station, take a look around. A list of our programs are on our website and can be found on our Facebook page as well. And finally, I wanted to update you about our Federal Advisory Commission. Last year, the Department of Interior undertook a review of all commissions across the department, including ours. And during that time, there were no meetings that were held. We now have permission to hold meetings, and we held one on June 20th. Your current representative is Eric Lawrence. His second term has expired, and within a few months, you'll receive a letter asking for a nomination to replace him. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the Federal Advisory Commission or about the park, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone have questions?
Nice job.
Thank you very much. It's certainly a huge asset to our community, and we're very pleased and very much appreciate you taking time out to share with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That will bring us to committee appointments. Historic Resources Advisory Board, where we have applications pending. Winchester Regional Airport Authority, I would like to move that we reappoint Gene Fisher.
Do you need to second that?
And second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So Mr. Fisher will be reappointed to the Airport Authority. I would like to wait on the others. Conservation and Easement Authority, they're all eligible, but we're waiting to confirm their willingness to continue to serve, so we'll delay that one as well, as long as there are no objections. Request from the Commissioner Revenue for refunds.
Mr. Chairman, you have 4 requests. I'll go through each of them. A-Car Leasing LTD is in the amount of $2,520.83. That's exoneration for 2018 personal property tax on vehicles that were sold or moved out of the county. BMW Financing Services NALC LLC for $2,789.61. Again, an exoneration for 2018 personal property tax on vehicles that were sold or moved out of the county. Bowman Properties LLC in the amount of $3,282.61. That's exoneration for personal property tax for 2015 through 2017, along with vehicle license fees, again, on vehicles that were moved or sold. And then the last is for Capital Meats, Inc., in the amount of $23,136.35. And that encompasses personal property tax from 2015 through 17 and vehicle license fees from 2015 through 16 on vehicles that were moved. These have been reviewed by the county attorney and okayed for form and are ready to be acted on.
Thank you, sir. The board would like to handle the refunds.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the refund for A-Car Leasing LTD for $2,520.83. Refund for BMW Financial Services NA LLC in the amount of $2,789.61. Refund for Bowman Properties LLC, $3,282.61. And lastly, Capital Meats Incorporated, $23,136.35, and the corresponding supplemental appropriation.
Thank you. You've heard the motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, is there any discussion? Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. The refunds are approved. Bring us to committee business, the Code and Ordinance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, the Code and Ordinance Committee met a couple weeks ago, and we have 4 items for the board to consider. The first one is an amendment to Chapter 48, Article 1, Section 48-18 of the County Code to allow for lifetime licensings of dogs. The committee recommended that the board set a public hearing on the matter, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next.
The second one was an amendment to Chapter 52, Section 52-5, and Chapter 143, Section 143-194 of the County Code to require payment of delinquent real estate taxes before issuance of certain permits. The committee recommended that the board set a public hearing on the matter, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next.
The third one was an amendment to Chapter 48 and 118 of the County Code to adopt a plainly audible standard with respect to certain prohibited noise. The committee recommended that the board set a public hearing on this matter, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Dunn.
on this issue in the committee, I objected that. I'll be glad to go forward with a public hearing. I'll send you all some comments, but I think that under certain medical situations, there ought to be some relief to people who cannot get away from heavy construction, et cetera. So I was looking for a compromise. I'll send you some thoughts out, but I'm just letting you know now that the next 2 weeks, I'll give you some reasons I might offer an amendment at that time for this.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
The fourth one is an amendment to Chapter 155, Article 8, Section 155-34 of the County Code to correct a typographical error with respect to the tax on electric service. The committee recommends that the board set a public hearing on this matter, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Public hearings will be set. All right, that'll bring us to the Finance Committee. Supervisor Slaughter?
Yes, sir. The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, July the 18th. Items number 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12 were approved under consent agenda, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 1 of the report, the VJCCA Director requested a fiscal year general fund budget transfer in the amount of $20,700 from a salary line item. This amount represents funds needed to cover May and June services. These funds are grant funds and would be taken from the salary line item to secure contract labor as opposed to salary. They were actually having trouble obtaining personnel. So they've done it on a contractual basis. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Okay. Item number 2, the Winchester Regional Airport Director requested a fiscal year general fund budget transfer in the amount of $21,924 from salary and fringes. This amount represents funds needed to cover fuel deliveries. The committee recommended approval, which I would make the motion to honor that, and also to point out that the revenue for fuel sales was up by $50,000 over last year's fiscal year fuel sales. So a motion forward to approve.
So you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and motion carries.
Item number 4, the sheriff requests a fiscal year general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $13,700. This amount represents traffic control reimbursements, no local funds required. The committee recommended approval and also recommended forwarding the topic to the Public Safety Committee for discussion to determine the need for a policy, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
That'll take us to item number 11, a fiscal year fire and rescue expense recovery fund 30 supplemental appropriation in the amount of $697,923.95 is requested. The amount represents $433,487.95 in fiscal year 18 revenue received over budgeted revenue, and $264,436 in fund balance funds for prior year distribution. No local funds are required, and the committee recommends approval, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
And the last item requiring action is item number 13. The Fire and Rescue Chief requests approval to move forward with hiring 2 additional training officers. Funds, as you may recall, were budgeted in fiscal year 19, and there was an attached memo in your packet. The committee recommends approval, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor
Aye.
Wells? Supervisor Lofton?
No.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, lastly, for information only, I would like to recognize the Finance Department under the leadership of Mrs. Schiffler for the Government Finance Officers Association Award to the county for outstanding achievement in the popular annual financial reporting for June 30th, 2017. And also, Frederick County received an award from the Government Finance Officers Association for outstanding achievement for excellence in financial reporting for June 30th, 2017, comprehensive annual financial report. So I'd like to recognize the Finance Department for the outstanding work and thank Mrs. Schiffler and the finance staff for their exemplary work.
Absolutely, well done.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Many years. Thank you.
And that concludes my report, sir.
Thank you. Bring us to the Transportation Committee report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, several items to bring before the board. The first one is a Smart Scale Project Support Resolution. The committee recommended approval of a resolution of support for Frederick County and regional smart scale applications, and I would like to ask Mr. Bishop if he could come forward, give you the content of those resolutions and a little background on them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bear with me, I'm trying to click and scroll here. Sorry, sir, I'm reloading the
Sorry,
page. I'm
you'll
having
have to get a little more physical with
difficulty
that
here.
thing if you want it to stay up where it needs to be. There you go. Thank you.
Can't get my tab to come up. Clicking on it, it's not opening.
Pony Express trade-off.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
When one iPad doesn't work, grab another one.
That's what we do. We pass them back and forth up here. Well done.
This is the wrong resolution, though. Here we go. I apologize for the delay. As noted by Mr. Lofton, we are recommending or the Transportation Committee is recommending a resolution of support for not only your own, Frederick County's, smart scale applications, but those that are being put forth by the regional organizations, the MPO and the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission, which are within Frederick County, which those are as follows. The exit 317 northbound ramp realignment, that will align that northbound ramp onto the current location of Redbud Road. It'll remove that signal. It'll also add additional left turn lanes onto the northbound 317 ramp onto I-81. That's one of your Frederick County applications. The next one, Route 11 North Corridor improvements, specifically centered around improving the intersection of Old Charlestown Road and Route 11 North near the Snowden Bridge subdivision. The next one is Route 522 at Costello Drive. Specifically, that is left turn lanes onto Costello in the vicinity of the Costco, for those who are well aware with that, what we deal with there in terms of left turn backups on a regular basis. And finally, in terms of the Frederick County applications that are on your resolution, Route 11 and Shawnee Drive, and also looking at OPEC and Church Lane there. We get regular inquiries, including one just this last week, with concerns at that intersection. What that is going to do is that's going to allow 2 lanes northbound across the bridge into Winchester there and increase flow in that location. Moving on to the MPO applications, which are within Frederick County. The first is the exit 317 XL decel lane extensions. That's tied into, frankly, your Redbud Ramp realignment project. 81 exit 307 roundabouts. That will take some leftover planning funds and hopefully couple it with smart scale dollars to improve the interchange at exit 307, where of course we currently experience significant delays. 81 exit 313 bridge capacity improvement. Specifically, you'll recall that just last month, the Commonwealth Transportation Board held a public hearing to put state of good repair dollars on the exit 313 bridge. This is the additional funds which would be coupled with those funds, which would add capacity as well. It's a bit of semantics that are being played with the different pots of money, but basically state of good repair funds cannot add capacity. They can only deal with the maintenance portion of that project. So the portions of that project that add capacity are your MPO smart scale application. Interstate I-81 Winchester hard running shoulders. That is from exit 313 to just short of exit 317. What that proposes to do is improve the shoulders of the I-81 north and south in that location, to the point where if we have an incident in that location, you can reasonably use the shoulders to absorb some of your capacity. So if you have a lane or even 2 lanes that are closed down to deal with an incident, you still have that shoulder lane, which you can now safely use to route your traffic. And finally, the last application, which is, under the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission, is the Route 11 South Corridor enhancements. What that is looking at is it looked at all the intersections between Winchester City and Renaissance Drive. And what that is doing is it's going to do a significant amount of access management in terms of closing entrances, working with folks to create consolidated entrances. And it actually also adds additional bicycle and pedestrian capacity, which actually significantly helps the score of the application. Those are the total of 9 applications which are located in Frederick County, although they're not all being applied for by the Frederick County Board of Supervisors, since you do have the limitation of the first 4.
Thank you, sir. Questions of Mr. Bishop? Anyone? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Motion?
Mr. Chairman, you've heard Mr. Bishop's explanation of these projects. I will say that we sorted through several projects trying to shrink the list down, because we're only permitted to submit so many applications now. And so we have to make sure that the applications we submit add value and give the biggest bang for the buck for VDOT, as we expect them to look at these projects and hopefully find that they are reasonable and will fund them. So, like I said, there are many other projects that we looked at. So these just filtered out to be what we thought were the most important and the biggest bang for your buck so we can be successful in these applications. So with that being said, I would move that the Board of Supervisors approve a resolution of support for Frederick County and regional smart-scale applications as has been explained by Mr. Bishop.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 2, the intersection of Route 50 and Independence Drive. This is a project that was initially presented by the new building at Navy Federal. They had actually conversations with the state and were advised that this may be an opportunity to use Transportation Partnership Opportunity Funds to improve the intersection of Independence Drive and Route 50. This application submitted would take the advantage of those Transportation Partnership Opportunity Funds, but it also has a backstop agreement with Navy Federal so that there would be no local funds involved in this particular project. With that being said, I would move that we approve the application for intersection Route 50 and Independence Drive agreements as presented and with the attached information.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn? Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Thirdly, the interstate corridor study is under the direction of the state SB 971 for Interstate 81. There was a public hearing held on June 12th of this year at Strasburg High School, which was well attended. This was just one of the public hearings of the 3 within the area with VDOT. Staff will be making recommendations on formal comments from Frederick County. But we also have a resolution that we would like to have approved by the board in support of, as soon as I get to it. A resolution of the County of Frederick for the Board of Supervisors to comment, let staff comment on the Interstate 81 corridor study.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? Hearing none. Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
That concludes your report, sir?
That concludes my report. Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
very much. All right, that will bring us to public hearings for non-planning issues. Item number 1 is an outdoor festival permit request of Concern Hotline for the 19th Annual Friday Fish Fry.
Mr. Chairman, this is an event that's been held for a number of years out at Groves Harley-Davidson. The proposed date of the event is Friday, September 7th, from 4 to 9 p.m. As I say, this has been held on this location for a number of years without any issues. I know the applicant is here if there's any questions of them.
Any questions of staff or the applicant? Is there anything the applicant would like to add? Thank you, sir. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this outdoor festival permit application? Anyone at all? Anyone? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Board, how would you like to handle this one?
Mr. Chairman, I move,
Supervisor Trout.
I move for approval of the outdoor festival permit request of Concern Hotline for the 19th Annual Fish Fry.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr.
There's a
Chairman.
second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Trout.
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn. Aye. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. That'll bring us to item number 2. Supervisor Trout, did you have?
Yes, sir. I want to disclose for the record relative to this item and pursuant to the State and Local Government Conflicts of Interest Act that I am employed by Frederick County Public Schools as a teacher and therefore am a member of a group who are or may be affected by this item, and that I am able to participate in the transaction fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
This is a public hearing, amendments to the 18-19 fiscal year budget. Mr. Tierney.
Mr. Chairman, this is a request for a supplemental appropriation to the school construction fund in the amount of $45,500,000. The purpose of the funds would be for acquisition of land, design, and construction of a replacement Robert E. Ayler Middle School. This is a required process in order for the school system to be able to go to the bond market to secure the funds for the construction project.
All right, sir. Are there any questions? Staff, anyone? All right, so this is a public hearing. Anyone like to comment concerning the proposed amendments to the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget for replacement Ayler School? You come forward, state your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. You will have to, there you go. Well done. Thank you.
Hi, I am Eva Stein, and I live in the Opequon District. I am 8 years old, going into 3rd grade at Middletown Elementary School. I'm going to be a 6th grader in Ayler in 2021. Please approve the replacement Ayler so my classmates and I can go to a new and healthy school that is the same size as the other middle schools in the county. Please do not delay your vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, well done. Would anyone else like to comment? Welcome, sir.
Hi, I'm Jackson Stein, and I live in the Opequon District. I'm here today to ask you to approve the funding for a replacement Ayler. I'll be a 6th grader at Ayler next month. I will already be at Sharanda if and when a replacement Ayler is built. While it will not personally affect me, I care about other people in this county and how it will affect them. Ayler students and staff deserve equal school size and opportunities as all of the other middle schools in the county. As a kid, sometimes I do things without thinking first, and I end up doing the wrong thing. When I think ahead and consider all of the choices, I usually make the correct choice. The county needs to listen to the citizens and plan ahead. Please do not delay the voting for replacement Ayler any longer. If it is delayed, more students will be forced to learn in an unhealthy environment with constant distractions from the CO2 monitors. In conclusion, please fully fund the replacement Ayler that is equal in square footage and student capacity to all other middle schools. Our end of the county deserves our fair share.
Thank you, Mr. Stein, well done.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Somebody I'm taller than. Okay.
You'll have to get up a little higher.
Okay, a little
You
higher.
got to be pretty
That
rough
good?
with it.
Is
Well
that
done.
better? Okay.
Bunch- Thank
All
you.
right. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Myers, and I actually live in the Stonewall District in the neighborhood of Snowden Bridge. First of all, I want to thank the board for approving the 12th Elementary School. Our community is very excited for the new addition. But tonight, I'm here to show my support for the appropriation of funds for the new Ayler Middle School. First of all, I would like to note that I'm truly disappointed in the direction our supervisors seem to be going in regards to our schools. It seems to be a game of approve the development, hold the infrastructure, like the approval of the zoning change of the section of Snowden Bridge to be townhouses instead of the predetermined R4. You have Southern Hills, Freedom Manor, Madison Village, Heriton Commons, Cross Point, Old Dominion Greens, Village at Middletown, and the reclassification of Lake Frederick are just a few of the neighborhoods currently or soon to be developed, all in or near the Ayler zone. Who's going to move into these 250,000 and up houses? 2/3 are expected to be families, not the retirees that are voicing their concerns to you monthly. Families who expect good schools and not schools that are being dictated by a board of members who most of which haven't had children in schools in quite a while. If the board and supervisors insist on approving these housing developments and building permits, they need to follow through with the aftermath. Be proactive and not reactive. Pushing a smaller school on the Ayler district, in my opinion, is irresponsible. The question has come up for the school board to prove why the 160,000 square foot building and extra space is needed. How about growth? Shouldn't that be enough incentive? If the money is needed, it's time to raise taxes, and I mean raise taxes like they did back in the late 90s to make Sharando happen. And 10-cent or more increase still keeps us along with or lower than our neighbors. If you need to give the retirees and low-income assistance, be creative and do that, but we need to do something. Because you have to know that the next year, the subject of the 4th high school is going to come up. Since, as I noted before, the areas that feed that school are busting with development, and Millbrook and Sharando are already overcrowded. I can completely understand you with concern on how the school board spends their money. However, the people in this community have elected these officials and entrusted our children's education in them, and I feel it's time you do the same. I'm honestly tired of coming every year to tell you that we want a great school system here in Frederick County. And while, yes, I know it's been conveyed, the building doesn't help kids learn, but I say we plan for the future instead of now. For example, I was actually in high school when Sharando was built, and I remember how fancy it was. I mean, the sinks turned on by themselves and everything. We were amazed. But 31 years later, it's still standing, it's still being utilized, and it's pretty darn normal now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir?
Hi, good evening. My name is Katie Bacher, and I'm actually a resident of Winchester City, but employee of Frederick County Public Schools. I'm asking that the Board of Supervisors not delay the vote tonight on the Robert E. Ayler Middle School funding project. As an instructional aide at Ayler Middle School, I am called upon frequently throughout the day to work with students who need a quiet and controlled atmosphere for their learning needs. Finding a space in the current Ayler building provides to be difficult due to the lack of space with our current student to square feet ratio. If you fail to take into consideration the concerns that we already face, a new school building will be just as much a concern as this one. Our students, all students, those with learning issues and those without, deserve a space that has a beneficial and functional learning areas. You owe our future Stevens City citizens the right to a proper education. If you choose to delay this vote another year, the students, teachers, and staff of Ayler Middle School will continue to experience constant daily learning distractions, such as beeping CO2 monitors, the whirling of humming fans, the sometimes dangerous placement of those vent fans in walkways, improper airflow to classrooms, and the continued vile smell of mold and other health concerns. I beg you not to delay and vote tonight to make a new Ayler. Do not make Ayler wait. Our Ayler building has performed to its fullest functions, and it needs to be replaced. Our students and staff are not asking for a state-of-the-art facility. We're only asking for proper square footage for a proper safe learning environment that is large enough and welcoming to all those thousands of future students who will walk through the doors of Ayler. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Adam Stein, and I'm a resident of the Opequon District. I'm asking you to fully fund a replacement Ayler without any further delay. Our county is growing rapidly. With this growth comes a responsibility to provide the citizens with the proper infrastructure to handle the swell of people coming into this area. This includes our schools, our public safety departments, our parks, etc. Roughly 3,500 new residences have been approved for the county, with many of them in the Ayler District. Further delaying construction of a 900-student capacity school with any less square footage than 160,000 will only cost taxpayers more in the long run. My son's going to be entering 6th grade at Ayler next month. He was so excited when he got to choose his electives for the coming year. He chose band and technology with ag as a backup. All three of these classes may suffer in the future if the funding and square footage requested by the school board is lessened by this board. These classes require large spaces to function safely and efficiently. Over the last 6 months, we've been accused of manipulating and brainwashing our children to speak up at these board meetings. At a previous meeting, a citizen was overheard saying "liar" as the student spoke. I want you to know that none, absolutely zero of these children have been forced by their parents, teachers, administrators, or school board to get up here and speak. They are 100% self-motivated. They do it because this is the dinner table conversation they hear at night. This is the conversation they hear between moms at the playground. This is the conversation on the school bus. This is the conversation in the classroom between peers. And this is the conversation in the car when we drive by the current building. And for those students who attend Ayler or have attended Ayler, this is what they have experienced firsthand. These students, who are a product of the education being provided by Frederick County Public Schools, are getting up here and standing up for something they believe in. They see the importance of speaking out for the well-being of others because the majority of these kids will not even get to experience the replacement. By the time a replacement is completed, most, if not all, of the kids that have spoken will be in a high school that is already 15% over capacity and will only continue to grow as the years go on. However, they are seeing what local government is now all about and how one decision can change and affect hundreds, or in this case, thousands of people in our community. So please, no more delays. I encourage you to vote, tonight preferably, in favor of a fully funded Ayler Middle School replacement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Caroline Harvey. I'm from the Back Creek District. I'm a current junior at Virginia Tech, and I support the replacement of Robert E. Ayler Middle School. I'm an Ayler alum who witnessed the building's need for replacement back when I was a student in 2011. Many opportunities have brought me back to Ayler, such as mentoring students, judging contests, where I continue to witness the same need for replacement as I did 7 years ago. Don't get me wrong, I love to experience that famous rustic Ayler smell every time I walk through the doors. But it disappoints me that the CO2 ingestion, the school size, and the flooding are serious reoccurring issues that students just like me are experiencing. How are current students expected to learn in that environment if I can barely stand to revisit it? I support an Ayler replacement that is appropriately funded by the school division's request to support real classrooms, not trailers, and a square footage that is not only comparable to other overcrowded middle schools, but flexible for the increasing student population. We need to build a school that not only meets our needs today, but also of the needs tomorrow.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Amber Wallen, and I'm from the Opeckin District. We've had a lot of conversation that I heard last night at the joint meeting asking us to prove the need for the extra 20,000 square feet and the need for the 52 million full funding. We had a lot of comparisons to Brambleton, but my question is, what's their median family income? What's their free and reduced population, lunch population? What's their ESL population? What's their special ed population? How many kids are receiving OT, PT, speech? Where are they getting that? Where's their sensory room, their ISA, their gym space for an adaptive phy-ed for their students with handicaps? Where's their ag department, music department? We thought that 160,000 square feet for Bird was practical funding, and you did it. You saw the need for room to grow at Frederick County Middle, so you funded it. Now you're saying that these previous decisions to fund middle schools, was that wrong? Because now it's not necessary all of a sudden? Bird and Frederick County, even the remodeled and the space used at James Wood, that's somehow excessive? 3 out of the 4 are excessive? A school isn't just traditional subject classrooms. The school board and the community can show you study after study saying it's never a bad option to provide a reasonable amount more than the bottom of the barrel legally required amount. Do you have liability insurance or comprehensive? Was that comprehensive insurance excessive? Do you only go to the doctor once a year, or do you go more often if it's in your best interest? Is that excessive? Do you drive a Gremlin or a Pinto, or did you opt for something a little more costly because it was more fitting to your current and growing needs? Was that lavish? If the county can only afford the $45.5 million, that's one conversation. We'll make do with what's available. But if all of this conversation and debate and fact-finding is to prove a need. I'm not sure how many more people have to stand up here, email, phone, or make presentations to show that there's more than enough evidence to show that 160,000 square foot school is a need, not a want. If you proved it with every other school in your own county, you proved that that wasn't a want, it was a need. Please do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Graber? Come on, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Marcella Simmons. I'm a resident of the Stonewall District and currently serve as the assistant principal at Ayler Middle School. I've spent my entire life in Frederick County, Virginia. I can't imagine working in another system or having my children attend school anywhere else because this is my home. I'm continually plagued, though, with concerns about where our priorities lie as I witness year after year denied funding to the most fundamental needs of this and any county: fire and rescue, police, and education. These are the most essential functions of any locality, and the entire community benefits from continuing to support them appropriately. Yet, year after year, I feel that we are all pitted against each other as we fight for much-needed funding to be able to do the most important jobs that impact every single citizen of this county in one way or another. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of our students, our parents, and our staff at Ayler Middle School. I am frustrated by the notion that our children are being whittled down to numbers, dollars and cents, and minimum square footage. My students, they are your students. They are our students. They are our future. And they are not dollars and cents or minimum square footage. I challenge you to think about what we value in this county. Let's go back to why we do what we do. Here's my why. I chose to be an educator so that I could give children the tools with which to empower themselves to reach beyond what they thought was their highest potential as they prepare for the future. And that future is constantly evolving and changing, which requires new and different ways of educating our students, as many of the jobs that we're preparing them for do not even exist yet. What we know, however, is that our students need to be able to think critically and creatively, communicate effectively, exhibit citizenship, and work collaboratively with others. Incorporating the 5 C's into student learning requires new ways of thinking about how we structure our classrooms and our schools, because the way that we learned in the past is not the way our students learn. Our county has the opportunity to build a new Ayler Middle School with collaborative learning spaces accounting for functional square footage, not minimum square footage, that allows for our students to fully engage in their learning as they prepare for their future. It is your obligation to make a decision regarding this matter, but it is also your opportunity to demonstrate to our county, and most importantly, our students, who are our future, where our values lie as a community. As our county continues to grow with new housing communities and businesses, Stevens City and Middletown being one of the fastest growing areas, does it make sense to shortcut our students? Does it make sense to whittle them down to dollars and cents and minimum square footage? As a taxpayer in the county, I implore you to be fiscally responsible. Having the lowest tax rate in the Commonwealth at the expense of our safety and education is not fiscally responsible. To me, being fiscally responsible means that we are not only preparing for now, but more importantly, factoring in the needs of our future. So I ask you, what do you value? What is your why? Our children want to know. They're placed their future in your hands, and they're watching closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Graber?
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I'd like to address 3 of you. One I will allow to remain anonymous. Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Dunn, thank you so much for taking the time to go and look through the school there in Loudon, and to come back and to write an article in the Winchester Star on your findings to educate all of us. I really appreciate your efforts. For the rest of you, I'd like to see you take a tour and see what they saw. You know, I have to wonder how many of these folks are here tonight because of an email or a letter that was written by David Savine. You see, on June 20th, a letter was sent out to the parents, and I'm not sure how that letter was composed, whether that was composed on taxpayer time, on utilizing taxpayer equipment or taxpayer monies. But it would seem to me he likes to get political in the system and push an agenda. I have to wonder how that's legal, but I'm going to digress. Have we looked at the true cost that this school is going to cost us? You know, if we write a blank check to the school board, it would still not be enough. If you ask an alcoholic how much more alcohol they need, they're going to tell you just one more. I want you to stop and think for just a moment. If we fully fund the full 5-year plan for the school board of $280 million, it would require an approximate 40-cent increase in taxes. 40 cents. That's a 65.5% increase in taxes just to fund the schools. That doesn't take care of anything with our friends in the sheriff's office. That doesn't take care of anything in fire rescue or public works or water or anything else. 65.5% just to fund the next 5 years of what they are asking for in the schools. I have to wonder, is that a wise investment of the county taxpayer dollars? I've heard a lot of things mentioned up here tonight, and one of them being the lowest tax rate in the state. I asked those people I asked you to investigate maybe what has been said this evening. I found much of it to be untrue. I did a little research while some of these fine folks were speaking. Our personal property tax rate is 4.86 per 100. If we look at some others, Prince William County, which we're often compared to, is $3.70. Fairfax County is $4.57. And Loudoun County is $4.20. Of those counties that we're frequently compared to, we're the highest. That's on personal property, obviously, not real estate. Let's make sure that we make our decisions based on facts, not just personal interests. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Change of pace. I'm Robin Young. I'm from Back Creek District, and I'm here tonight as a citizen merely to support the wonderful young people in my neighborhood who go to Ayler. When I moved here from California, and as I passed around the different highways and byways of Virginia, I was so impressed at the schools here, and I thought they were all wonderful. They had big lawns and lots of land and modern buildings. I was a kid in California. We were going to double sessions for a couple of years because the district couldn't build schools fast enough for the homes being built and the kids moving in. So I was really shocked to be in this room one night and to learn everything that was wrong with Ayler. I have a school bus stop in front of my house, and I always look out the window at the kids when they're coming home, if that's where I happen to be. And I was shocked that these kids are dragging their butts off the bus. And I've never seen kids do this before. Usually it's like, yay, we're home, we've got energy. And I couldn't figure that out. But then when I heard about the CO2 problems, I realized that they're only about getting oxygenated now as they're getting home because they've been deprived all day in school. I've been following the Ayler funding issues. And as a former elected official myself, I understand when you put a piece of property out to bid and you don't get but $50,000 offered for it. I understand there's a need to try and accumulate the money for this school, which perhaps should have been happening over the years, but we are where we are now. Personally, I would prefer a full-size school, but I would like to suggest to you the possibility of asking for the plans, if you're going to start with a smaller school, ask for the plans to be expandable so that if you can float a bond or you can find some other money, that you could then expand the school to a more appropriate size in 5 years or so. So please consider that. The first thing a realtor is going to do in talking to potential buyers for any property is they're going to look at the school district. And if they find out that it's a crummy little school that these kids are going to be jammed into, that is going to hurt Frederick County in a very real way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Let me adjust that. My name is Brandy Hammond, and I'm from Shawnee District. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I'm here tonight in support of fully funding the Ayler project. I know there have been resolutions and discussions about the $45.5 million instead of the full, the originally requested amount of $52 million. But in my opinion, I think we need at least $52 million. I know that's not what was asked for, over $52 million, but part of the reason I say that is I'm really concerned about the delays. Last year, with the other 3 CIP projects, the delays really concerned me. So this year, when the delays happened again, I started doing some research and found out that non-residential construction cost from 2014 through 2017 rose about 4.2%, and that trend is expected to continue over at least the next several years. So when I did the math, and I'll be honest, I don't have the exact numbers, but I did try to take out the cost of land, the cost of A&T, the furniture, et cetera. Just looking at construction cost, that shows me that each month this board delays voting on this is costing us as taxpayers somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000 to $150,000 every month the vote is delayed. So we already missed the spring bond cycle, hoping this vote can be taken before the fall bond cycle. But at this point, these delays in making this decision and taking a vote have cost the county, I think, at least $500,000. And as a taxpayer, that's not acceptable to me. So I don't want any more delays. And as future projects come up, I don't know why there are so many joint meetings, questions asked, answers given, and kind of the same thing over and over again. You know, there's the CIP project list for the school board online. You all have that, so you can see what's coming. AILR has been on there since 2004. So if I encourage you now to start asking those questions and getting those answers about future projects that aren't even requested yet, so that when the FS request comes up, you can go ahead, schedule a public hearing, take action, and not cause these costly delays. Other reasons I fully support fully funding AILR. And again, by my estimates, I think you need probably around $52.5 to $53 million at this point if you took action tonight, but that cost will continue to grow each month you delay. My daughters don't even go to AILR. I have a daughter at Sharando, at Byrd. They both went to AILR, or I'm sorry, ARML previously for elementary school. And, you know, I mean, everything's getting done too late for them. Obviously, they won't have, you know, uncrowded conditions. That's their norm, unfortunately, due to past delays and not planning for our future. But that's the thing with AILR and the size. I know everyone's concerned about 160,000 feet and the design, and several of you have recognized that the design needs to be left up to the school board. You're the funding body. And that's actually in Virginia code, so I ask you to adhere to that. But we need to build a building for the future, not one that's just good enough for right now, not one that we're going to have to add on to at a much higher cost 5 years down the road. And honestly, I'm still concerned about the 12th elementary school because I feel like we're going to have to add on to that pretty soon after it's built. You know, this could potentially help overcrowding. My daughter is overcrowded at Byrd. There are students overcrowded at James Wood Middle School. So we want to plan for the future. You know, it won't open up full capacity, but it can grow to full capacity. Other people have spoke about the incredible growth in our county. So I'll finally just leave you with this. As our elected officials, you all have a responsibility not to act on your own interests or opinions, but to listen to your constituents. Okay? You know what your constituents want, whether it's because you've heard them here or you've received those emails from your constituents. Please listen to your constituents and act as our elected officials should. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Jill Cotrio, and while I'm not a resident of Frederick County, I am a proud teacher of Robert E. Ayler Middle School. 16 years ago, I started my teaching career at Robert E. Ayler Middle School. After 3 years, I accepted a position at Richard E. Byrd, where I taught for 13 years. This past school year, I decided to return to my old stomping grounds. I was happy to see some familiar faces after all those years. Some of the faces I'm referring to are seated before you this evening. I was also happy to see my old classroom, my very first classroom, room 123. It doesn't look like much to many, but to me, it's where I gave my first lesson. As I mentioned, it doesn't look like most to many. It's very small. It's one of the smallest classrooms in the building. It lacks windows, and there isn't much room to move the desks around, so creating a collaborative workspace was very challenging. There really isn't a hallway right outside room 123. It's surrounded by classrooms on all sides. I can recall a student with autism having a really difficult morning one day because what the breakfast menu had indicated would be served for breakfast was in fact not what was served for breakfast. And because of that hiccup, the rest of this young man's morning was a challenge, and every student and teacher who surrounded room 123 knew it. You see, because of the size of Ayler, there are space restrictions, and with space restrictions come challenges. Every room is needed for instruction. However, we have students who need a space to de-escalate. A new building could provide this space. As mentioned, I was at Byrd for 13 years. The school was able to meet the needs of students much like the one I described with an option of sensory rooms. That's why we didn't have one sensory room at Byrd, we had two. One for movement and one for quiet. Because we realized that some students on the spectrum needed to move while others needed the quiet space to de-escalate. Admiral Richard E. Byrd allowed our staff to meet our students' needs. This year I had the opportunity to work closely with two young men at Ayler, both of whom struggled to focus, which meant learning was a challenge for them. Our teachers worked diligently to meet their needs. However, one issue we seemed to keep running into was trying to find that quiet place to test. If you recall, we had fans running in every classroom and CO2 monitors beeping at times. And while these sounds may drown out and become background noise to some, for those who struggle with attention deficit, it was crippling to their success. We always work hard to find the quiet spaces, however, even if it meant that quiet space was my little 8x10 office. This small space is where these two young men took their tests, including their SOLs. And I'm proud to announce these two young men passed their SOLs thanks to the relentlessness of all. We at Robert E. Ayler Middle School will find ways to succeed with or without a new building. It's who we are. However, we owe it to our students to give them the best opportunity to be successful in an environment which boasts learning. We shouldn't have to take our students to the smallest space in the building in order to be free from distractions, and we shouldn't have to hope that a student on the spectrum is able to soothe himself so others around him can attend to instruction. We owe it to our students to provide them with a building that will allow them to learn in the space that is most appropriate for them. We shouldn't have to meet the needs of our building. Our building should be meeting the needs of our learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors, School Board, citizens, teachers, and students. My name is Mike Faison, and I live in the Gainesboro District. Every day I pass by two awesome schools, Frederick County Middle School and Gainesboro Elementary School. Unfortunately, my kids go to a different school district, but I would love for them to experience Frederick County Middle School because of its collaborative spaces. I also work in Dulles, and I got a chance to see the Brambleton School being built. But I have a question. There is another middle school that you guys passed by, the Lumpton Middle School, and I'm wondering why it is that you didn't stop there to check it out. Also, with collaborative spaces, I know firsthand as a substitute teacher that they work very, very well. I was known as the fun substitute teacher in the middle school because nobody else wanted to do middle school children. Because at that age, as we all know, they're changing in their bodies and their minds. So they need space to grow and learn certain things. Rising sixth graders are taking career explorations classes as part of their curriculum. Our schools are also preparing students for experiences in the real world. By utilizing some of the collaborative spaces, Frederick County uses a house system in the middle schools. In most simple terms, a team of 4 teachers has the same students throughout the day of their core classes. This allows the teaching team to be better or to do better things with them and get to know their students. I had fun taking my students to the library outside to work with them. We did biology outside, and they loved that. They got a chance to learn. As a team, they can more effectively help students. As leaders of the community, don't you want to see your future citizens be educated and able to pay taxes? As our students go into the working world, they need to know how to function in a group working environment. This is a need expressed by many employers. The schools are delivering on what employers are seeking. This is a part of where collaborative learning spaces come in. These spaces are used for small group activities among individual classes. Small group projects have been part of education forever. These activities have always occurred in areas where students could spread out a little. In the past, they would occur in the school library. As technology increases, and we know that it is, libraries have shrunk, but the need for the small groups has not. This is a simply way for teachers to continue group activity in a closer proximity to their classrooms. It allows for classes to be split at all times between working groups, small group instruction, and other activities that they can do together. Moving forward, these students will enter our community. They will be the future of boards like this one today. And I want to commend the two students that spoke earlier. I see them maybe be on the board of supervisors. Wouldn't that be great? They also will run nonprofit groups. They will run our local construction companies. They will be working together in groups to solve our community problems and issues. Thank you so very much for allowing us to speak on behalf of the AILR, on behalf of the AILR students and their family members. Please don't delay. It is critical that we implement our motto. What our motto is, we live at the top. Life at the top is better. Let's show our kids that we can do this for them and that their lives can be better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Anyone? Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Mara Guntang, and I'm from the Back Creek District. I'm here to speak as a mom of my past, present, and future students of AILR, urging you to vote for funding of a much-needed AILR Middle School. While I'm happy that so many people from the community have spoken up and shown support for AILR, I'm saddened to see the proposed funds would hopefully only cover a school 20,000 square feet less than Byrd. Some of the growth in just the AILR-Sharando area that I found, Old Dominion Green under construction, Southern Hills, another 130 single-family homes, Meadows Edge, Cross Point, Lake Frederick, Village of Middletown, Walnut and Massey Lane, Mountain Vista Estates, Freedom Crossing, and Liberty Chase. Overall, that's approximately 3,500 new homes projected for Frederick County. But the proposed AILR would be the smallest middle school in the county during this growth. Please don't make a mistake by building AILR to just accommodate for our future growth. And lastly, my personal agenda is for my children, my community, and our future in Frederick County.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Brian Nuri. I'm a resident of the Opequon District. I'm not a parent, and I'm not speaking as any kind of educator, as a future educator. However, I do have a concern about this expansion. AILR has been behind the times for a long time. I escaped that middle school in 1993. I returned as an election official 3 years ago to the exact same stench, to the exact same feeling of closed air in there. It is not a happy place to be, and I don't want to remember how it was in the 7th and 8th grade, and I don't want to think that our children are doing that now. In terms of crystallizing what has gone on tonight, we are seeing a huge amount of development coming into this county, and we're not seeing a lot of forethought expansion. In 1993, when I attended Sharando High School, it was the brand new high school with the self-operating sinks. We walked in there, the school was, I believe the estimate was 10% under capacity. Jameswood High School, however, was, if I had the estimate correctly, over 15% over capacity. It made Sharando look really nice for the first 2 or 3 years until we started to have to suck it up and realize we have to have trailers. Why is the school board being held back by our board of supervisors from planning ahead? The excuse 20 years ago was, well, we were using old numbers. Well, now we have the ability to learn from that mistake and compensate, because as someone brought up earlier, we've lost somewhere about $500,000 just discussing this thing. Why are we wasting so much time dealing with this? We've already burned a good amount of time that we could have been doing planning and potentially even figuring out how to redistrict just so we can rebuild Ayler. Because with the logistics of everything, how would we be able to do anything? According to Ed Zirinsky on about construction costs, it would be anywhere between 3.5 to 4.2% increases in development costs just to expand the school. So we're burning a lot of time waiting for everything to happen. Ayler needs changes now. The kids can't sit around listening to CO2 sensors going off. I was even told by one teacher she had radon alarms in there. I remember radon in the mid-1980s as being something that Northern Virginia had to deal with. We didn't have to deal with it here. Why are we dealing with it this was in 2004. Why are we dealing with this here in a school that we know has been a problem? And if you want to take it down to even a county level, this is one of our election locations. Do we really want to drag people into a substandard school? Considering all the other nice places that they can go vote, Ayler is one of the least impressive. So basically what I'm asking is how long will this board continue to abuse our patience, to misquote Cicero? It's time to act, and it's time to represent the schools and the children, not just the tax. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Board. I am a parent in the Opequon District.
Hold the mic up, sir.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm a parent in the Opequon District. My 3 kids, all 3 of them go to Bass Hoover. One's going in kindergarten, one's in 1st grade, and the other one's in 4th grade. And they would benefit from a new Ayler Middle School. They would benefit if the board stops dragging their feet on moving forward. And my hope is that soon you will make a decision to appropriate the proper amount of money, not just for the minimum, but for the full capacity as you look ahead. My hope is that this board is a visionary board, not just looking at the moment, but looking ahead towards the future. So we need to move forward as a county, as Frederick County. We need to move forward to build this middle school and build it beyond where we see it within the next 5 to 10 years. But for the future of our kids, for the future of my kids, because this is personal for me as a parent. So let's move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Chairman and member of the board. My name is Lana Rouser. I am in the Back Creek District. I am also a school counselor at Robert E. Ayler Middle School, and I'm also a mother. I have a rising 10th grader at Shrando, and I have a rising 6th grader who will be attending Ayler. I actually came back from my family vacation early so that I could attend this meeting, of vacation that we planned over a year ago, because it's important to me. Not because I have any sort of a political agenda, but because it's personal. Ayler is not just, we're not just some community. We're not just the smallest school. We are a family. We are a family. That's why people are here today. And families do what they do for the people who need it. We support our families. All of you have families. We are a family, and that's what we need to be communicating to our children, who are the most vulnerable and the most important members of our community. And what you are saying to them over and over and over again is that they don't matter. You sit up there and you continue to ask, prove, prove, prove. We voted you in. Prove to us that we matter. Prove to us that we are part of a bigger family. Prove to our children, to our teachers, that we matter. That is all we're asking for. We're not asking for anything more. We're not asking for something that we want. We're asking for simply what we need. We are tired of being the minimum. We are tired of being the bottom of the barrel. We are simply asking that we are extended the same consideration that the other 3 middle schools are extended. We are tired of being ignored. We are tired of watching you all vote in. On my way to work, dropping my son off at Sharando, dropping my daughter off last year at Middletown, I passed four developments. And yet you keep saying Ayler is enough. It's not enough. We are asking for, 160,000 square feet. That is not unheard of. That is not unreasonable. We are asking you to make us a priority. We are asking that you see us, that you hear us. After all, a family supports, a family takes care of the most valuable and the most vulnerable. And I don't know who else in this community is more vulnerable than our children. And they deserve your respect and your time. They deserve to be seen and they deserve to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sophia Gunt.
Hold the microphone down. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia Gunting. I'm from the Back Creek District. I have come to many meetings fighting for a solution to Ayler. You need to do something, and you need to do it now. The 140,000 square foot school that you want is not what the community needs. Bird is overcrowded. We all know that. We don't need a new school that is smaller than all the schools are right now. Some of the Bird kids are going to be sent to Ayler, and in 1 year, the new Ayler could be overcrowded just like Bird. With that being said, we need a school that is bigger than 140,000 square feet. A school that small will not meet the students' needs. I'm from the Back Creek District, and so are so many future, current, and past Ayler students. Mr. Lofton, please represent your district well and vote Ayler to be rebuilt at 160,000 square feet to meet the needs of the students. We are counting on you all, our representatives, to make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Anyone else? Anyone? Dr. Savai.
Good evening.
You had to get pretty physical with it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm David Savine, Superintendent of Frederick County Public Schools and resident of the Shawnee District. I want to extend my appreciation to each of you for your level of engagement and support for the Ayler replacement project. We've now had 3 joint meetings since January focusing solely on Ayler. During my tenure as superintendent, this is the highest level of engagement we've had between 2 boards for any one project. In addition to extensive discussions in each of these meetings, the school division has responded to numerous questions in writing submitted by the Board of Supervisors members in advance of these meetings. I, along with the school board members and staff, have always remained available to meet with board members individually to address questions in between each of these public meetings. I want to thank Chairman DeHaven and Supervisor McCarthy for taking the time to meet with me, Chairman Lamanna, Mr. Lake, Dr. Orndorff over the past week and in advance of the last night's joint meeting so we can answer any remaining questions. The school board first took action with a resolution request for an appropriation on February the 6th. As Chairman DeHaven and Supervisor Wells mentioned last night, time is now of the essence and action is necessary to keep the Ayler project on the timeline for a fall 2021 opening. Additionally, as Dr. Orndorff has mentioned numerous times now, each day that a decision is delayed, this project is impacted through increased costs due to significant commercial construction inflation. In closing, I'd like to share with you one of our many recent successes of Frederick County Public Schools. According to the Virginia Public Access Project, 73.2% of Frederick County's high school graduates who applied to a 4-year public college and university in Virginia from 2014 to 2016 were accepted. This exceeds the average statewide acceptance rate and is one of the highest acceptance rates in the region. It also exceeds the acceptance rates of Loudoun and Fairfax counties. We certainly have a lot to be proud of here in Frederick, and I want to thank all of our Frederick County Public Schools pre-K through 12 educators who work hard each and every day to prepare our students to be competitive locally, nationally, and globally. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, sir.
Yes, Alan Marson from Gainsborough District. Members of the board, appreciate this opportunity and the time you spend in working through these projects. The process we've been going through lately has been an extremely difficult and trying one, and I know that this has not been an easy process. Part of the problem has been you're trying to hit a moving target. What you hear this month will be different from what you hear next month. The data changes, the numbers move. Letters that were sent out were deemed not sent out. So it's kind of difficult to keep it up. I'm in a position now of thinking about buying a new car as my 1996 pickup truck is starting to give me trouble. And I have envisioned emotionally what I would like to have. But however, I have come back to earth because of what, number one, I actually do need, and number two, what I can afford. Those is called reason, and we need to balance emotion and reason. There has been resistance in benchmarking what we are asking for with other districts that are successful. Benchmarking is one of the most necessary tools in any effort to efficiently progress in any process. Number three, we want to trust our officials, but we don't want to verify. Ronald Reagan ran through this problem when he was president with the Soviet Union. He came upon a policy of trust but verify, which is amusing and a little bit ironic because that's an old Russian proverb that he used against the Soviets. I would like to be able to trust everybody, but I, through experience, have become an eternal skeptic. If we do not verify what we are doing, any of us, but especially you as elected officials, are, number one, being very foolish. Number two, you would be very irresponsible over your duties. We need verification. We need to get the most impact from every dollar, not just in our schools, which are very necessary, but all the other county functions, which are also very necessary. We do not have unlimited funds. We need to get the best impact for every dollar we spend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
My name's Dana Newcomb. I'm from Gainsborough District. The issue here this evening, as I see it, is not whether or not we need to replace Eiler Middle School. That decision has been made. And we, the public, expect that when that's executed, that the facility that is produced will meet the needs, whatever they are. As I see it here this evening, and I go back on the many years I have in government procurement and contracting, this proposal here is not properly structured for effective procurement and contracting. You don't vote to give someone a bag of money to go out and execute a process that consists of multiple stages. That's not cost effective. It lends itself to fraud, waste, and abuse. Has nothing to do with how much money's in that bag. It has to do with the structure of the process. And I would recommend that the Board of Supervisors go back to the school board, which has resisted this up to this point, and ensure that this process is properly structured so that these costs can be segmented, so that acquisition documentation can be properly produced for competitive acquisition, so that the county and the school board and the school system get the most for their money, get what they deserve for their money, and that we're not facing a problem of having wasted funds because we're spending too much for what we're getting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Ann, and Carrie Ann Kite. I'm in the Shawnee District. I want to start by saying thank you for letting me speak. I've been up here a few times. Since 2012, 11 middle schools have been constructed according to Virginia Department of Education construction website. The state average over this time is 167.9 square feet per pupil. Of these schools since 2012 that were under 150 square feet per pupil, there were 2. Both of those 2 were in Loudoun County. So, why is Loudoun County being signaled out as the model when they are the exception? Since 2012, Loudoun County has built 3 elementary schools, 3 middle schools. One of those middle schools was at 153 square feet per pupil, by the way, and 3 high schools. We are not Loudoun. Our needs are different than theirs. Their growth is faster than ours. And if you want to make a comparison, I could ask why they are able to build 9 schools since 2012 in such a short period of time, while our county is taking 6 months to deliberate over 1 school. In looking at floor plans of Brambleton, I can see that a large design difference is the way they organize their grades. While this appears efficient on paper and in a tour, it isn't how Frederick County educates our middle schoolers. The floor plan of Brambleton organizes its classrooms by subject. Frederick County uses a team house concept. And as a parent, I understand this is a way for teachers to better collaborate, and they can just better assess the needs of their students. They can easily confer when a student is struggling. It helps them from having students fall through the cracks. I'm not an educator, so I can't tell you about the benefits of this methodology, but as a designer, I can tell you that the floor plans of these 2 types of teaching methodologies is very different. And perhaps that's one reason why Brambleton is smaller. And I'm curious if all the other school districts that were above 150 square feet per pupil also use this design methodology. I do know a teacher in Loudoun County, and I do know that the school she teaches in was a fairly new school, and it is the team house concept. So I believe it could very well be this larger school. It is unfair to hold our school board to a design that does not align with our teaching methods. Our citizens vote for an independent school board. They are tasked with making these decisions. This isn't a new educational concept, so many of the questions that you keep asking are part of the job of our school board. And some of these issues will need to be flushed out by the architects, but they can't even begin until you allocate funds. So please do your job and allocate the funds and leave the educating to our school board. Now, you've asked the school board to prove why this space is necessary. Well, for 13 years in this county, we have had a school of just under 160,000 square feet and a capacity of 944. It was built at 150 square foot per pupil, and that's Admiral Byrd. This was built without public outrage or criticism from this board. The one thing I just want to note, I've been coming to these meetings since 2017, or I've been watching at home. So since January of this year, 32 individuals spoke in favor of funding our schools and including Ayler. And so far, only 3 individuals have spoken against the funding. Those 3 are here tonight. Before I tallied this, actually after I tallied this tonight, it looks like we have had another 18 speakers. 9 new speakers that have not spoken at all this year. And this actually goes along with people last year. There were 39 that came out in favor of CIP funding and only 6 speaking against. And I got all this from meeting minutes or attending. So many of these people speaking are parents that have to find childcare in order to come here and advocate for their kids. It's not easy for me to make it when I'm juggling 3 kids and a work-from-home job. In fact, the only reason I'm here is because my daughter's gymnastics class is going late this evening. But I do it, and many others do it, because we want to make this community better. I don't have a student at Ayler, nor will I. My oldest starts at Byrd this year. So can we please give the Ayler students at least as much as my child is going to get at Byrd? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kirk?
Good evening. My name is Joy Kirk. I'm a resident of the Back Creek District, and tonight I'm speaking to you as a teacher in Frederick County Public Schools. I have taught at Ayler on and off for the past 23 years. It's where I was hired 23 years ago. When they walked me down the hallway to my classroom, 160, the teacher said, "Do you know what your room used to be?" I said, "No, I just knew it was my classroom." "Oh, well, when this was a junior high, this was the math teacher's office." So my classroom had been an office, but now it was my classroom. And I did what all good teachers do. I taught. I taught my students math and reading, because that's what good teachers do. I taught at Ayler before Byrd opened. So you can imagine, I've been in an overcrowded school. I then left Ayler, and I went to Armel. I taught at Armel before Evendale opened. When Byrd opened as a middle school, Armel had more students. I now teach at Byrd. Byrd's overcrowded. I'm not going to be at Ayler next year, and I'm a little sad about it. I'm going to be at James Wood and Admiral Byrd. So I'm going to have a new experience in a new school. But here's what I know. All of our students deserve the best learning opportunities and the best learning environments. No student is better than another. All of our students deserve the best, and they're worthy of the best that we as a community and a county can provide them. 160,000 square feet is going to allow for a situation like we're in now at Byrd. We're overcrowded, but we're making it work because fortunately, we have that extra square footage. We don't want to end up in a position where we are packed to the walls with children. It does not allow for good learning. It leads to issues in the hallways. The cafeteria can only serve meals for so long during the day. The gym classes can only be so large. So we need to be forward-thinking, and we need to make sure that when we build this school, we're building it not just for the situation we're in now, but the situation that our students are going to be facing in the future. Because someday, as I always tell my kids, someday that kid sitting next to you, they're going to be the banker who you go to for a loan, or they're going to be the lawyer who stands next to you in the courtroom. Maybe they'll be the board of supervisor who sits up there when you're asking to do something fun on your property for a public hearing. But we are the future, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? Dr. Lamana.
Thank you. John Lamana, from Chair of the Frederick County School Board. Actually, everything that needs to be said, I think, has been said. But as Chairman of the School Board, I just want to make one comment. And that comment is really in defense of the people that I work with. If I can get just personal for a second, my father was a member of that great generation, World War II veteran. And one thing he taught me was the most important thing you have in life is your integrity. And I think that's true for individuals. It's also true for boards. I don't have difficulty with anybody disagreeing with the school board of Frederick County. I do have difficulty when people challenge our integrity, whether that be the juggling of numbers for some, I don't know what purpose they think. It is our intent to do what is best for the students and the families of those students in Frederick County. That's our mission. That's our only purpose. When we talk about Ayler at 160,000 square feet versus 140, it's because we genuinely, through much research, much discussion, much debate, have decided that's in the best interest of the Ayler students and the Ayler families. That's the only reason. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir?
Yeah, I'm off the minute here. My name is George Hughes. I live in Gainesboro. Most of you know who I am. I've been around here for a while. But anyway, when I hear these numbers and to everybody talking like money's money, well, what the hell, it don't make any difference. But you know, just recently Gander Mountain building, 59,000 square feet, was sold for $4,200,000 and included land, parking, and all the appurtenances. Now, why are schools so damn expensive? We're talking about $1 million a year, and at the end of 50 years, which is apparently the life of a school because we've got a dead horse setting up on the hill behind the hospital. We're going to have another one along 81 at Stevens City, and they're worthless. They're a net liability at the end of 50 years, so we're going to spend $1 million a year for the next 50 years to keep an albatross. Why do we need to do that? I don't know. I'm not going to argue about whether the quality of education is good or bad. All I know is I see a report in the paper that we slipped 2 more places worldwide in the level of education for math and science. So where are we gaining anything? Where are we at? I would like to see a general application of the state exam that was given in 1930 for 8th grade. Took 8 hours to do it. And I'm not sure that anybody in this room could pass it. You had to write a 500-word essay, properly punctuated, properly spelled, properly written in cursive, and I don't think in today's world that's a possibility. But I'm not here to argue with that. I'm not in the position to judge it. But I am very concerned about what I consider unnecessary expense for a lot of things that we're doing. And we've got an albatross up here, right? What was it worth? 0. It's a negative. We're going to have another big negative. How bad did we get beat up on Gainsborough? How bad on the school down here? Every school we've had has been a loser in the end. And we got a big loser coming out there in the town of Gainsborough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone? Last call. Yes, ma'am. Please don't hesitate.
I just kind of want to respond to that. And again, I'm Jennifer Myers, I'm Stonewall District. So, yeah, he's absolutely right. We probably couldn't pass a test from 1930. But if we put a test that dealt with technology and today and the future, I guarantee you he wouldn't even know how to touch it. And that's where our kids are. Our kids are learning differently. They are learning cursive. There's this big thing that says kids aren't learning cursive. They are. They're just not using it like we used to use it. And as far as like the schools not being worth it in 50 years, my guess, and again, this is totally a gut instinct on me, is because our school system is strapped. And I've watched them. They don't have the money to make the repairs because they're always catching up. They're always doing the next thing. They can't fix what's there. And so then the schools fall down around them. They don't have the money to look forward because they're always catching up. And it's so disturbing to me that this whole old way of thinking is being pushed upon our future of our children because it's an entire different world now. Like, my kids play video games all day long, and I'm telling myself I shouldn't let them do that. But you know what? If they don't know how to use technology, they're not going to succeed in life because that's where we're going. But it's just frustrating to me, and that's all I have. I wanted to thank you all for the consideration, and I really do hope that you start to push forward and look to the future of Frederick County and not just, let's just Band-Aid everything as we go by. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Kevin Barrington with the Back Creek District. I wasn't going to say anything, but I've listened to this and kind of enthralled by it all. As you guys well know, I told you last time I was an assistant football coach at Ayler. So with that, you guys know I'm here on the Carmoose deal. So I just want to let you know that the school district and the product that they put out with my 2 children are one of the reasons that kept me here after the decision was made to rezone Carmoose back in 2008. So with that being said, knowing that the product they put out, and I told you I've seen the deplorable conditions at Ayler. We're getting ready to start football season here in the next week. When we go into the gym, we go in there, have to clean up dead bats and stuff that are in the gym. Kids shouldn't have to deal with that stuff. So I don't know what the big argument is over 20,000 square foot. I know it's a considerable chunk of money, but it's our kids' future. I don't know if I'm going to remain a resident of Frederick County after my wife retires, but I think that for those that have younger kids, they need to have that top-notch school so the kids can learn. I'm pretty impressed with the 2 that the kids put out right now, or that the school put out right now. And I'm enjoying some of the success that they're seeking or that they're obtaining right now. So thank you for the time, and I'll see you here in a few minutes.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone? Last call? Then we'll close the public hearing. We thank you for your participation. How would the board like to handle this?
Mr. Chairman, after meeting last night and talking with Dr. Lamanna and Dr. Savine, I think everyone in the room knows I'm in favor of good schools, and I'm in favor of Ayler being 160,000 square feet. I don't know, I don't want to postpone this vote tonight. Other board members have agreed that we have a limited period of time, but we do have some time to move forward and talk about the 160,000 square feet. But in the interim, I would move that we move forward and approve the request from the school board for the $45,500,000 and the 140 square foot new Ayler school. And that hopefully in more discussions down the road, we might be able to increase that.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And the second, discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor McCarthy.
Yesterday, I expressed at the joint board meeting my concern that voting tonight for a $45 million allocation for a new school may be unwise on a lot of planes. One being that I don't think the Board of Supervisors gets the school that they anticipated getting. And second, I don't think Frederick County Public Schools gets the school that they anticipated getting. So to me, the vote on a $45 million allocation tonight is a vote in favor of something that I think is a lose-lose. Now, we can always have a win-win, but I think we can do better than lose-lose. When I met with Dr. Savine, Dr. Lamanna, Dr. Orndorff, and Representative Michael Lake, they expressed that they do think that they can provide information that may influence a decision one way or another on this matter. And I think it would be wiser for us, at the recommendation of the school board, to look at that information, take the 2 weeks before our next meeting, which still gets us in time for the bond offering. I asked yesterday the school board, is there any interest in doing that, or should we vote tonight on this $45 million? And the consensus was it wouldn't hurt to wait the 2 weeks. So I don't understand why it would be necessary to rush tonight to vote for this when we're not going to be any worse off, in my opinion, 2 weeks from now, with the exception that we may have an opportunity to find a better way forward between now and August 8th. Thank you.
Further discussion. Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chairman, I want everyone to know that I support replacing Ayler Middle School with a new school, a practical, functional, and cost-effective school. My why, to go to the question, is to represent all taxpayers and use the assets, tax dollars, prudently in the provision of all services provided to the citizens through the county government. We're not deliberating tonight whether to build a new school, but rather what is the optimum size and the cost. I believe it is wise to take the time to digest the information presented to me as recently as yesterday, ask the questions, and deliberate the effects of my decision. Haste makes waste. Additional information has been requested, and as Supervisor McCarthy has alluded to, we are expecting that information on which to base a decision. So I believe it is critical in evaluating this request, and after receiving that information and giving it due consideration is when I will make my decision, so I will not vote yes on this expenditure tonight.
Anyone else? Supervisor Trout.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr. Wells that we need to fund a 160,000 square foot school. However, I also agree with him that 45.5 million is a good start in the right direction. I think we should approve that appropriation this evening and then use the additional time to answer any further supervisor questions. I, for one, have no questions from the school board. Since this started in January, I feel like all of my questions have been fully and completely answered. Everything that was thrown at them, they answered with more information than I could have ever needed. In terms of making a decision now, as a new supervisor, I was just speaking with Supervisor Slaughter before the meeting about the fact that things are thrown at us at the very last second all the time that we're asked to vote on. Even with Carmoose, our next hearing, we've had things thrown on the dais right before we have to vote. This is not something that has been thrown on us at the 11th hour. We've known about this since January. We've been having people come to meetings since January. We've been having students come to meetings since January. I think Ms. Guntang has been here at least 6 times. I don't know. She just is like a revolving door on that microphone. So I don't think that delaying 2 weeks is going to answer any further questions. I think that this evening we can approve the 45.5 million, and then if we have further questions about sizing, collaborative spacing, we can consider additional funding. And I don't think that waiting would serve our community's needs, as it's a waste of funding while we continue to delay as construction costs increase. And I think that it will possibly have us miss the fall bond cycle, which could delay the opening of the school. So in conclusion, I would fully support voting for this tonight with the notion that we will revisit in the next couple of weeks and possibly appropriate additional funding. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Slaughter.
Yes. We had discussion last evening with the school board, and they very much agreed that they would be willing to come back to us with additional information, which frankly, I think since we have tasked them with that, it would be very important for us to take that information into consideration. I think at this point, we still are well within the realm of meeting the fall bond market. However, I do believe that this board would be well within its authority, should they choose, if there is an issue with meeting the fall bond market, to make an appropriation of whatever the fall bond market issue would be, and make a disbursement to the school board if we so chose to do that. So I think there is an avenue for us to accommodate the fall bond market issue without making this appropriation tonight. My research shows me that this has been done in the past, and we basically would, the school board would present the county with a reimbursement resolution. So I think the issue of whether we would meet the fall bond market or not is a non-issue. And I think it's prudent. We've gone this far. We've asked the school board for information, and I think for us to make the best decision we can, I think we should allow them to provide us that information. So I will vote no.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Doug.
Seeing that we've all talked. In 2 weeks, or let me rephrase this, if we vote in 2 weeks, we still can meet this fall bond market situation. So this 2-week situation is not a make or break. Yesterday, we had a discussion with Dr. Lamont and Dr. Savine, and we asked them questions, and they said they would give us back some information. And I've said to them, lay out your case. We may agree or disagree, but I wanted to hear what the arguments were between the 140 and the 160. That was the question that Dr. Lamont posed to me yesterday. And in the conversation we had yesterday, they said they would go and provide some additional information. So I'm going to vote no on this. We'll have the information next 2 weeks. We'll make a decision on that and go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Supervisor Slaughter.
Just one last comment. I would echo again what Supervisor Lofton said is that, it was the consensus of our board that we do want a new school for Ayler. So that is not the issue. At least from what I'm hearing, everyone wanted to move forward in that direction. So we do realize that it is very important.
Supervisor Trout.
One final comment in terms of waiting to appropriate additional fund. So I had Mr. Tibbs give me information regarding the funding appropriations for Frederick County Middle School, and it was done piecemeal, actually, some funding in 2008, some in 2012, and then the remainder in 2014. So it is not without precedent for us to appropriate $45.5 million and then appropriate additional funding. In fact, I don't see a problem with that at all, and I would really urge us to make a decision this evening and not delay anymore. We've wasted many evenings of our constituents' time as they've come to speak about the same thing over and over again. And I guarantee that if we delay this vote 2 weeks, we'll have the same number of people here again to speak for the same thing one more time. And I don't think it's fair to them to continue to delay and to continue to waste on an issue that, judging by the number as I kept my tally while people came up to speak, that the vast majority of our constituents support. So for us to not appropriate these funds when that is their wish is just irresponsible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? So I have to make a couple. I don't think that the school board, if we were to appropriate an amount of money tonight, and the amount of money that we've been considering is what we offered to consider appropriating, and let's then begin to work on their application for the fall barn market. I think it's important that we not push them to the very last moment to leave them the absolute minimum time to prepare their application. But as Supervisor Slaughter has suggested, there are many avenues that can help us get them prepared and to the market regardless. But I would intend to call another meeting for us to make this decision between now and the 8th. A bit of digesting time after we receive the information from the school board, and I just want you all to be aware of that. I expect us to make a decision before the 8th.
Okay.
So, is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm wrestling with the fact that we've spent a lot of time on this. At least I've been involved in a lot of time, and so have my fellow board members. And we come up with a figure, and we say to the school board, here's what you're asking for. We're not there. We're not going to go there. We're going to go less than that, but here's what we'll agree to. And I'm having a hard time figuring out where we are. I know where I'm at. I'm having a hard time with saying what questions haven't been answered, what points haven't been brought up, and what will 8 days do. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding what you want, what my fellow board members want answered. I guess we'll hear that in the next 8 days. It sounds like they're not going to vote on this particular motion of mine to pass that. So I guess in the next 8 days I'll learn, but I'm disappointed that we can't move ahead on this, and that's just where I am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Further comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Dunn.
Mr. Wells, one of the questions that was asked to me was, what was the difference between 140 and 160? And my comment to Mr. Lamanna, or Dr. Lamanna and Dr. Savine was, show me what the differences are. So one of the things I expect to get back in the next time between now and the time that there's another meeting is what those differences are, and I'll make a decision. A couple of people here made some very constructive comments. The woman who made the comment about the different styles of education in Loudoun County versus here was constructive. I appreciate it. The comment about the size of the schools. The Department of Education says that 131 square foot is the standard for a 900 student school. Brambleton has 136 square feet per student. They have 2 gyms. One of the comments that was made was what do you do with the ag department, which is at Ayler. That gym is the gym is 5,000 square feet. The adjoining space is 1,500 square feet approximately. It's 6,500 square feet. My question to Dr. Lamanna was, show me what the difference is. So that's why I'm looking for the time to see what those differences are, and then we can have a conversation. There's a few of you in this audience that I'm going to probably call. Please accept my call, because I appreciate some of the comments. We may not agree, but we can talk some more. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, one more thing. On the 140,000 square feet, That for a 900 students classroom is 155 square feet, or about 156 square feet per student. If we vote for a 160,000 square foot school, that's 177. So both numbers were above the 150 that was mentioned earlier. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there anyone else? Any comments? The motion is to approve 45-5 at 140,000 square feet. Supervisor Trout?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
Does the board want to vote on the merits of this motion to approve its public hearing item?
I'm sorry?
The board would be voting on the substance of the public hearing item,
Yes.
which any new item after that would require a public hearing, a re-advertised public hearing.
I understand.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might move to make an amendment to the current motion, that we table this discussion until the next Board of Supervisors meeting.
All right, we have a motion to amend to the next BOS meeting. It's the 8th.
Or meeting called sooner than that, not necessarily the next scheduled, but the next Board of Supervisors meeting.
Thank you. So there's a motion to amend to the next supervisors meeting.
I'll second it.
And a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, would that include a public hearing? If we,
We've held the public hearing now.
so I would request an amendment.
The motion could be different, and we would have to go back, I assume. I see Mr. Williams. If we're considering a different than what was publicized tonight, will require additional publication.
Okay, I would just request, an amendment to the motion that there would be a public hearing.
Now, there
Is that
would be,
acceptable? Okay.
unless it's this motion. If it's the same thing that was advertised, we would not need to hold an additional public hearing and drag people out for the same question again.
I think they'll come anyway.
That's fine. That's great. Okay, are we clear?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Motion and second is to amend to the next Board of Supervisors meeting, delay until the next Board of Supervisors meeting. Is everyone clear? All right, Supervisor Trout.
No.
Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
No.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy.
Aye.
Chair votes no. The motion carries. We will delay this decision until our next board meeting, which could be the 8th. All right, let's move on. Public hearing, rezoning 0517, Ms. Perkins. Yes.
A little taller.
You're still, I think, going to have to get it up higher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to amend the proffers associated with rezoning 03 of 2006. You may recall this was approved back in 2008.
Folks, please clear the room. We have a whole nother page of work to do tonight, please. Thank you for your attendance and your participation.
That 2008 rezoning rezoned the property, which was 394 acres, to the EM Extractive Manufacturing District with proffers. I just want to make a quick note. There are some pages in front of you tonight. They are very, very minor in nature. There was a date modification that we needed to change. The one that was in your agenda referenced an older version of approved proffers. It stated May 22nd. The actual final approved proffer date from the 2008 approval was the 27th. So that's why there's new pages in front of you. The substance of the proffers from your agenda package have not changed. So just want to quickly go through what the proffers state. Just to note that the proffers in front of you are consistent with your last board meeting on the 13th of June. So with that, the proffer amendment proposes the removal of the overall plan and the phasing plans. There's removal of a few viewshed plans, 4B, 5B, 6, 7, and 8, and they've also included the north viewsheds, which are 1, 2, and 3. For the site development, berm D continues to be shown broken down into 4 sections. They're proffering the spoil piles not to exceed the height of the highest berms north of Chapel Road. The berms will be installed after permitting and 2 years prior to the extraction of materials for processing. And again, that is just the broken down berm D sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, consistent with the last board meeting. The other revisions, continuance of the monitoring wells, blasting notifications, stationary seismograph reader north of Chapel Road, lighting, which would be turned off after working hours, keeping the existing fence tree line along Section 1 of Berm D, which would be maintained using best management practices and farm practices. The hours of operation would be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday. No extraction of materials outside of the berms. And then continue the field between Berm D, Section 1, and the Western View subdivision would not be used for parking or storage of mining equipment, and anything parked back there would be for staging of this area only while engaged in maintenance, monitoring, and/or exploration activities. This continues to be the same GDP included in your agenda. So just some of the past meetings. This went before the Planning Commission back in November. They did recommend denial. It's come before this body March 14th, April 25th, May 21st, and June 6th. Sorry, June 13th. It was tabled at the last meeting to come to before you tonight. So tonight we are seeking a decision from the board on this requested proffer amendment. I would be glad to answer any questions, and the applicant is here if you have any questions for them.
Are there any questions? Ms. Perkins?
Sure.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Ms. Perkins, can you just clarify for me, did you say that the provision regarding spoils piles to not be higher than the berms is a new provision, or is that also in the
That's
old
been in
provision?
proffers.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's all.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Trout?
Ms. Perkins, I've received a number of emails talking about Carmoose being used as a source of water and how that is or is not in the proffers. Could you speak to that?
That's not something I could speak to. There was some old proffer language in there that continues to be in there regarding water and reclamation, but I'm not sure of any current of the emails that you've seen. I could defer that to the applicant if they have any further clarification on
Okay,
that.
yeah, I'd like additional information regarding that because I've received numerous emails with that as a concern about the new proffers.
Supervisor Dunn?
Ms. Perkins,
Sir.
this current proffer has a smaller footprint than the proffer in 2008, correct?
Correct.
My understanding is that Carmoose, if they so chose, can institute that smaller footprint without a proffer, and they can do it administratively. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So therefore, they would not need a proffer to do the smaller the smaller footprint.
Correct. Tweaking of the berm locations, but not the berm
That
heights.
would be along the current new berm all the way through. It will simply be shrunk.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Applicant have anything they'd like to add? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thanks again for this opportunity to present our request to allow the amended proffers. I just want to throw out there, we have not made any last-minute changes as suggested in the past. As you first know, we first filed the amended proffers back in February of 2017. The amended proffers previously appeared in a red line format which was intended to allow for the presentation of an update of accomplished items of the original proffers, which were approved as a part of the rezoning in May of 2008. As you can see from the red line amended proffers in your packets, much has been accomplished, changed, and has occurred over time. Having said this, the red line amended proffers, I think we can all agree, has proven to be somewhat confusing. After several meetings with some of you, we have taken the amended proffers out of the red line format and created a first amendment to the proffer, which sets only, the key word here is only, those proffers which we are requesting be amended by the Board of Supervisors tonight. It is important to note everything else remains intact and unchanged. We have received positive feedback on this new format, and we trust that you will find this easier to read. We will let the staff and others comment further if they wish, but for the benefit of our neighbors, all the edits in the amended proffers are included and contained in the First Amendment of this proffer statement. Everything we agreed to back in June is in here. Thank you for your consideration in this amendment proffer statement. We, Carmoose, truly believe that installing these berms further away from property lines and, where possible, behind existing mature vegetation, installing these berms in the future as opposed to now, and restricting the hours of operation for that portion of the quarry which lies north of Chapel Road, all are benefits to the better and for the neighbors. A no vote tonight means this all goes out the window, and we revert back to the 2008 proffers. It also means we will begin construction as soon as permits are available. Thank you. We look forward to your vote, your support. Any questions?
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor McCarthy.
Mr. McCotch, first I want to thank you for this revised version of the proffers. For my personal opinion, it's much easier to understand exactly what's being changed without getting lost in all the red and blue lines on the form, so thank you for doing that. I have one question, which is to clarify with regard to the hours of operation. It says in your amended proffer that the hours of operation are set between 6 and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday with no operation on major holidays. Does that mean that there won't be mining on Saturdays and Sundays?
It does not mean there won't be mining on Saturdays and Sundays. It means our normal mining will be conducted Monday through Fridays.
Then a follow-up question. If it does not mean that mining will not happen on Saturdays and Sundays, what type of operation is it an abnormal hours of operation? Or can you explain what type of operation that is on Saturdays or Sundays?
Our intent, and again, I know that's a word that folks don't like to hear, but our intent is not to operate on Saturdays and Sundays, but we do not want to limit ourselves to that. Today, we do not operate Saturdays and Sundays at our Middletown operation, and we have not operated our Middletown operation on Saturdays and Sundays for the past 10 years, 15 years.
Thanks, sir.
Other questions? Anyone? Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this proposed rezoning application? Anyone at all? Anyone? Come on, folks.
This is like a rerun again. I'm Kevin Barrington. I'm from the Back Creek District. I hope this is my last time I have to come before you in this, under this issue, but Mr. McCarthy's last question to Carmoose just sums it all up. It's a bunch of wordplay in these documents, and there's nothing that holds their feet to the fire. Normal working business hours, that's normal today. They speak of, in many of the meetings that we had about, well, if the demand needs it, we could run 3 shifts. So does that mean that's out of the normal business hours, but does that mean that they can't do it on Saturdays and Sundays? You just said that they could work on Saturdays and Sundays if, you know, according to that, the new amended proffers. And I communicated with several of the board members because they wanted to know where we stood, and I can't get behind any of the set of proffers because I can't wrap my head around the fact that they're going to be that close to a residential area. It makes absolutely no sense to me, and I voiced that a long time ago as well. But there's no, you know, for me to act, you know, to get behind one of these set of proffers is to basically sign, you know, I said it before, you know, choose which way I want to die, fast or slow, and I really don't want to die, period. So, so if you, you got to keep in mind that a lot of us, we get heated over this whole issue. It's something that I've lived with now for, you know, 13 years. And when we sit back and we reflect about how much property value we're going to lose, how much quality of life we're going to lose, I do not want to see these guys make a red cent on my despair. So whatever you guys have to choose tonight to vote that keeps them from making money on our loss, that's what I want. There's been so many changes with these proffers that I can't even keep up with them, and I don't even know what the newest one says. I haven't even looked at it. So it's, you know, it's that frustrating for me. So again, I just ask you guys, please make the decision that keeps them from making the money and at our expense. I know it sounds selfish, but it's selfish for them to move in and encroach on our property and destroy our lives. So I appreciate all the time you guys have put into it, and I wish you luck in making this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen.
Sir, please pull that mic
Okay,
up for us.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. The
Sometimes
folks
when-
watching at home can't hear you if you don't.
Okay. Bill Hunter, Back Creek District. And first, the last time I spoke to you folks, I made a very fervent plea for your help in dealing with this situation. And I appreciate the help that we've gotten. Mr. Lofton, for your interference, let's call it for a better word, between us. Unfortunately, as Mr. Barrington said, I see everything that's gone down as bits and pieces, semantics. We've played a lot of word games as to whether or not you want to say normal business hours, or whether you want to say 1 year or 365 days. And it's just absolutely become a circus, if I might borrow the words of one of the board members. The new item, the bits and pieces have come and gone. We've gotten a little, we've lost a little. Basically, for your benefit, Mr. McCarthy, on a March the 2nd, red strike through, and this was done by Mr. Lawson at one of our meetings, who was part and parcel to the agreement and the dissolution of the agreement between FCSA and the county, or FCSA and the quarries, okay? His statement was at that point, okay, first of all, FCSA does not exist anymore. Okay, secondly, the agreement does not exist anymore. But yet it's worded in the proffers that you have, and that is the most recent amendment. Unfortunately, Ms. Perkins wasn't in the other day, and somebody actually let Mike Ruddy go on vacation. Jeez, he's got a lot of nerve. But anyway, I got the latest and greatest, and it was an addendum to the amendment of the addendum to the amendment to the proffer. And it's as Kevin said, it's become so confusing. But basically, the water issue, that was slipped in there. It was just something that came up in an email from Mr. McCotch. Looked at it, didn't think much of it. But when I pulled the amendments Monday morning, I was there bright and early Monday morning, and the ladies that helped me unfortunately didn't have the extent knowledge that obviously Ms. Perkins has, but they gave me what they thought you guys would be seeing tonight. And I can't understand how you can put language like that back into a document guaranteeing water to FCSA under the terms of a program that's now defunct. And that is Mr. Lawson's own words. If I'm not mistaken, he was part and parcel to the debacle that went down in Harrisonburg when the whole thing fell apart about that water deal. How can you put that kind of language back into this and have anybody live by it when there is no deal and there is no FCSA? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay. We're good.
Robin Young, Back Creek District. I've compared the two proffers and wish to share my analysis of the minor gains in the latest version. By doing the berms later, the environment is disturbed for fewer years. It's not optimum or perhaps even realistic to expect a 2-year-old tree to establish under industrial conditions. Planting 24-inch box-sized trees could mitigate that, but they cost more, and Carmeuse is cost-aversive when it comes to the environment. However, the majority of the homeowners adjacent to the berms restated this week that they prefer to have 8 more years of access to the view that they purchased. We gain a commitment to preserve the existing tree line at Western View. We avoid the annoyance of having equipment parked beyond berm D. The latest wording on the working hours is stupid. In my personal opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, I think it's a fact of life that the quarry is going to find any way it can to work the hours it needs to make the money it wants to. So to me, the silence in the 2008 proffer is no guarantee on working hours. And obviously, the word normal is staying in. We gain the lights turned off after hours. We gain a communal test well and seismograph. These are small things, and they only took a couple thousand hours of community input to accomplish. The critically important right for Frederick County is to access the water from its own aquifer, and that remains. There might be drought years when the Shenandoah and the Potomac could be too low to supply all cities drawing from them. Heck, in the 1780s, there was a year of drought where you could ford the James River on horseback. It ran that low from drought. So my personal belief is that our agribusiness, our homeowners, have first call on our own aquifer. I don't want it sold off to Nestle by profiteers. And I talked to FSCA just this week, so I must have been talking to a ghost, I guess. I note with extreme displeasure that Carmeuse has dropped the language to communicate test results with owners. I know they're a small facility and that idea overwhelms them. I'm sorry they lack the vision to see how technology could make that easy. But surely they understand we persist, and we'll just go after them if they continue to hide test results. So this is not goodbye. 10 years ago, those sitting at this very dais forced a bad deal onto Back Creek homeowners, in effect, devaluing property. Tonight's proffer does little to mitigate that, so I cannot stand here and say, yes, I approve this. I will only say it is the best of a bad deal. Wiser about Carmeuse tactics, I know if this is not finalized, almost done, they will find another poison pill, another grossly inflammatory sentence to throw into a paragraph that never needed rewriting to begin with, just to stir the pot. We will all expend more effort dancing at the end of their string. You are now sitting in these very chairs at this very dais. You have the opportunity to do a little more for us rather than a little less, and it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Well, wait a minute, Jordan. Gentleman was on his feet. You got to be quick. You'll have to get it way on up, sir, and you'll just have, there you go.
I'm Richard Dye.
Yes,
I
sir.
own 65 acres adjacent to Carmeuse property on the southeast side. And I share a boundary with them of over 1,000 feet along Middlemarsh Brook, and my comments are about that particular berm along Middlemarsh Brook only. I'm not commenting on berms facing Western View because I know they have their own issues. But I don't understand why Carmeuse is saying it's no longer a good idea to allow 10 years for the trees to grow in. In '08, they presented this as a good idea, to allow 10 years for the trees to grow in. I have seen this and benefit from it at my home, where a development was built behind my house 18 years ago. We both have walkout basements. We back up to each other. We looked into each other's kitchens. After 18 years of trees growing, they're 35 feet high, and we all now enjoy a much greater sense of privacy. I think the 10 years to let the trees grow in is a good thing, as I've experienced it myself. I can't understand why it's no longer a good idea. I guess I would ask each of you to consider, why is it no longer a good idea? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hughes?
I've got no question.
Folks at home can't hear until you get up here.
I've got to get on camera, just like at the jail. Anyway.
There you go.
Or TV George Hughes of Gainesboro. I've just got a question for the people from Carmeuse. What's the extractive life remaining in the quarry as stands, as you're proposing?
Depends on the demand, sir.
Well, I understand, but based on current production,
25 to 40 years.
25 to 40 years. What are you going to do with it when it's done? You've got empty holes all over the county now. What are you going to do with it when it's done?
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Last call. We'll close the public hearing portion.
Mr. Chairman.
You got to be quick, sir. Come ahead, please.
I'd be young enough to be quick enough. My name is Kean Banks, and I live in Middletown, the Back Creek District. Wanted to thank all of you for the time and input. And wanted to even thank Carmoose for the time and input and hours that we've spent working on coming up with a solution. It's all about integrity and the words that are used. And one of the issues that we've been working very hard on is the trade-off between hours worked and if we got, our Saturdays and Sundays and holidays free of booming and bombing and dust, could we trade off that for a 2-year to 10-year deal? And it was kind of a trade-off. I know you guys are tasked with a very tough job of managing the community needs with the business needs. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that you've taken real effort into looking at both sides of this and pulling it up and shaking it off and seeing what falls out. I don't know what the right thing to do is necessarily. What I do know is I wish that wording would have left the weekends and holidays so we could sit and barbecue and not hear the booms and bings and dust. I was hoping that would be the case when I walked in here today. And for 9 months, we've been playing, I don't want to say tag, but I want to say we've been playing negotiation. And I think we came into the negotiation with an honest feel for what would make things better. And I'm not against the idea of making money, or I think everybody here knows that it was a bad decision to put a mine next to the housing to begin with. But we can't change that. What we tried to do was minimize the effect that we've haven't coming to us in the next 10 years. I wish I could say that I would support either deal. I think there's great things that were had in this proposal, but I also think it fell a little short of what I was really hoping would happen. And I understand the businesses don't want their hours limited, but I do think if they're not working those shifts now, why not limit them? What are you going to do on a Saturday and Sunday that you, in 10 or 15 years that you haven't done in the last 10 or 15 years? And again, it comes back to that integrity factor. If the intention was to make us feel good, that's fine, but the wording should match what the words coming out of the mouth are. And I appreciate George for being honest and saying Saturdays and Sundays will work if the demand is there, in which case the wording of the proffer is irrelevant. With that, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the time. I know you guys have put a lot of effort and time into talking with people on both sides of this issue.
Your participation is important. Yes, sir.
Ed Stroing, I live in the Back Creek District. I participated in, I think, most of the discussions in our community groups, discussions with the community groups in Carmoose, discussions with the community groups and Mr. Lofton. It all comes down to does the old proffer, the 2008 proffer, prevail, or does the new proffer, the proposed changes in the proffer, prevail? From my perspective, given that the old proffer to me was a disaster, the new has many failed points, but also many good points. I can't condone the old proffer. In my mind, given the community input and what Carmoose has taken from that and put into the revised proffer, I could only support the revised proffer. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone? Last call? No, ma'am, not yet. Last call, anyone? Yes, ma'am. Briefly, please.
Very briefly.
Robin Young, Back Creek. For my personal treasure trove of copies of proffers for Supervisor McCarthy, the exact wording on the spoil heaps is the spoil heaps or the storage of material will not top the highest berm. And now that we have berms at 3 different levels, it means it will top the 10-foot and the 20-foot berms. Just a detail. And I want to just thank all of you so much for listening to me and the rest of us over the months. You've always given us very good attention, even though you must be really tired at certain points in the hearing. So you're appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? And we'll close the public hearing portion. Would you like an opportunity to address any of the concerns you heard stated?
Yes, I would, sir. Perhaps I wasn't clear enough. The word normal is removed from the amendment. And again, I know Saturday and Sundays, but that's why we have it in here as Monday through Friday. So if I have a business and I have placed on the wall and it has hours Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., am I going to show up at that business on Saturday to see if it's open? Probably not. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Back Creek,
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one question of Mr. McCotch as a follow-up?
if he's willing, you may.
Just one question. Yes. In light of the fact that the word normal has been removed, but yet the statement that the operating hours are Monday through Friday, but that you want to leave the options open for Saturday and Sunday, to me, it seems that the words don't quite have the meaning that we expected they would mean. Does the words no major holidays mean no major holidays, or does that also mean no major holidays except when we want to work on major holidays?
Means no major holidays, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Back Creek.
I have a question first, Mr. Williams. The word normal has been removed from, as Mr. McCosh has said. It specifically states hours of operation, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Legally, is there some workaround that a company could use to operate on hours other than what is stated in the proffers?
Mr. Lofton, I don't think so, in all honesty, but I mean, that was my view coming in tonight when I knew the change had been made. But with all due respect to the applicant, I've heard him say 2 different things here tonight as far as what they think it means. So I'm not sure that I can say that that means what the plain language of it seems to mean. Perhaps the workaround might be if it was changed to say that no operation shall take place except from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. If that's what the applicant is now saying it really means, perhaps that would be the solution. But again, within the course of 10 minutes, we've heard 2 different explanations of what that sentence means.
Well, I would, to me, no disrespect to the applicant, but when I see the hours specifically stated, that's why I asked that question, legally, is there a workaround? Because even if you put in there what you're suggesting, there's probably a legal workaround from what I'm hearing you say. So I would like to be clear that specifically, if in fact they decided that they were going to work on a Saturday, the Mr. Chairman's office could go out and say, your proffers say you can't do this, so you need to shut down your operations.
Again, it seems clear to me, but the applicant has clearly indicated they think something otherwise.
So can I ask the applicant if he wants to clarify that remark?
Only if he's willing.
If the words suggested here would clear this up, we are willing to go on record to state it as such for this amendment, for the properties north of Chapel. So the hours of operation will be only Monday through Friday. If we add that word only, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., north of Chapel. Will that clear this matter up?
I have a question. It may clear it up, but I need to know what you're thinking, because I think what Rod may be alluding to is a meeting of the minds. If you have a different interpretation of what a word means than what we have an interpretation of what a word mean, it may be something that can be challenged later on. So my question to you is, if you offer that as an alternative wording to this document, is it your intention then to not mine on weekends?
It is our intention to not mine north of Chapel on weekends.
Thanks, sir.
So can we go on record as stating only? Does that clear it up?
Yes, I think that what would be appropriate here, since it has been, and I'll let Mr. McCotch correct me if I'm misinterpreting it, suggested by the applicant that they are willing to add the word only, that if the board is ultimately seeking a motion, or if the board is going to consider a motion to approve the rezoning as proffered, that it be as proffered with the addition of the word only after, well, really after the word be, so that that sentence would read, hours of operation for the portion of the property north of Chapel Road shall be only 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. And this next sentence would remain the same. No operation shall take place on any major holiday. And again, as long as the applicant is agreeable to that, then any motion the board would make would bind that. The applicant would need to turn in a revised version of this promptly in order for this to be completed. But the board could go ahead and approve it subject to that tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to get to discussion of this item, may I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to approve rezoning application number 05-17 of ON Minerals doing business as Carmoose Lime and Stone with the amended language of inserting only into the proffer of hours of operation.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor McCarthy? No, sir.
I think Ms. Young and Mr. Banks summed it up very well from my perspective. I agree with much of what they said. I would say the vast majority of what you said. This has been a very difficult process. I'm glad that the residents had an opportunity to work with Carmoose on finding some benefits. However nebulous those benefits may seem from time to time, I think there are benefits in this amended proffer. I went through a process of comparison, pros and cons of the two proffers that had been offered, and visualize what it would be like to live in your neighborhood under either proffer. First, this proffer now has a restriction on the hours, at least north of Chapel, between the hours of 6 and 10, Monday through Friday, with no operation on major holidays or the weekends. I think that's a net benefit, because under the current proffers, they could do 3 shifts, 24/7, 365 days a year, and I can't imagine living with that type of an operation in my backyard. So I think that's a good thing. There's a provision for guaranteeing that Carmoose will take measures to ensure the survival of the plantings that go in, which isn't a perfect fix, but it mitigates some of the concern regarding having the 10 years for the plantings to grow. And I know that for some of you, that's a major issue. So I see that there's been some compromise there. It's not perfect, but that is not in the original proffers. If the original tree plantings go in and they die, you may end up with a barren berm that has no plantings on it. So I see that as a benefit. There's the addition of the monitoring well, which is not in the current proffer. There's the addition of the stationary seismograph, which is not in the current proffer. There's the addition of restrictions on the lighting to be turned off after the working hours, which means at least north of Chapel, the lights go out at 10 p.m. every night, Monday through Friday, and you won't see the lights on Saturday and Sunday or major holidays. That's a win for the homeowners, I would say. Under the amended proffer, the tree and fence lines remain in place, which I think is a win not only for the folks who live there, but it's a win for Frederick County. It's a win for the wildlife in the area. The field between Berm D and Western View will not be used as a storage area. Under the current proffers, it could be used as a storage area. So for the folks that live in that area, you don't have to look out your backyard and look at the staging area. It may be for, or it could be for staging area, but it's not going to be for permanent storage of vehicles there. So I see lots and lots of small wins for you. So I think, as Robin Young mentioned, this is the best of a bad deal. So I will vote in favor of this amended proffer. But I do want to make one statement, because I find it unconscionable for a company to come into the Board of Supervisors and hand us a document and say, we want to work with the community. It benefits the business, which is fine with me. It had been suggested that we should punish Carmoose by not allowing them to make money. That's not our job. Our job is not to punish anyone by taking away their occupation, their living, or their money. Our job is to protect the citizens of Frederick County, to benefit the citizens of Frederick County, and that's how we should look at this, and that's why I'm voting in favor of this tonight. But I do want to state on the record that I find it unconscionable that Carmoose came into this tribunal, stood in front of us meetings ago, and said, if it's an issue that with operation on the weekends or on major holidays is going to be bothersome to the folks that live in these areas, we'll take it out. The plain words were, we'll take it out. We're not going to do it. A document was presented to this tribunal that said, at first, that the normal hours of operation will be between certain hours. That raised a red flag for us. We said, normal hours, what about abnormal hours? Okay, we'll take it out, because our intention is that the hours of operation are between certain areas. If I hadn't asked the question tonight, would we have known the intention of Carmoose to violate the terms of the agreement that was put before us? So I'm glad that we were able to get to a final resolution of this that's good for the folks that live over there, but I'm sorely disappointed in the way that this was presented to us, and I certainly hope that this never happens again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Doug.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, this is a tough vote. We've wrestled with this for months. I'm just going to discuss with you, it's just my observations, that's all this is, a thought process. Initially, there was a presentation. We had the 2008 proffers that were the baseline. Then we had a discussion on the new proffers. Mr. Lofton has worked hard, very hard, on trying to be a negotiator between competing parties. Carmoose, in my opinion, this is simply in my opinion, wanted to go and have a smaller footprint because that would save them money. And that's fine with me. I think that's a good thing. It also helps everybody in the audience here that's doing that. I'm in business for myself. Carmoose is in business to make money for their employees and their shareholders, and they produce a product. So I don't think that there's any, so profits to me are good, and so I don't fault Carmoose for having a profit. That's good. The hours on the time, well, I'll come back to that in a second. The old proffers have a 10-year time frame for trees to grow. The trade-off for those 10 years of time was that initially Carmoose has said we would like to have a 1-year time frame to build some berms, and then they pushed that to 2 years. Approximately 6-8 weeks ago, I asked Ms. Perkins whether they could have a smaller footprint administratively, and I was told that a year ago, the attorney for Carmeuse sat down with the Planning Commission and was specifically told that Carmeuse could have a smaller footprint. Administratively, they did not need to do a proffer to do that. But when Carmeuse went out to the people that are adjacent to the quarry, they offered this without saying, we can do this without this. And if they simply said, we would like to have a shorter time frame, it will save us money to build some berms, because the carrying cost for building those berms today and waiting 10 years versus the carrying cost for building those berms 1, 2, 3 years out is significant. It costs them money. And if I had known that 3 or 4 months ago, I could have said to Carmeuse, you know what? You initially wanted 1 year, and I'm not asking for anything, but other people might want to say there should be a little bit longer time for trees to establish themselves. I've talked to the ag tech here, who've made the comments that 2 years is a minimum for trees to establish themselves. I've talked to some farmers and some other people who've discussed this issue of photosynthesis with dust that's occurring. And so I personally just wrestled with the trade-off between the no weekend, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10, no weekends, no holidays. That was part of my wrestling. And trading that with a 2-year time frame versus 10, with a 10-year time frame, et cetera. What Mr. McCarthy has laid out on various benefits are all true. Unfortunately, Mr. McCotch made a comment 10 minutes ago when he said Saturday and Sunday still was on the table. And I asked Mr. McCotch a week ago, and I just asked him, I thought the understanding was no weekends, no holidays, and he informed me that my understanding and his obviously different. So I'm going to have a hard time voting for this. This is a tough, tough decision. I do agree with Mr. McCarthy that if Carmeuse had come here and said, this is what we want and here's why, we could have wrestled with that. I'm having a very hard time just to say yes when 10 minutes ago what here was language Monday through Friday was honestly said by Mr. McCotch to say, no, we might need to do it on weekends. We had raised that issue before. I had raised that comment with Mr. Williams before. This is unfortunate. I would encourage Carmeuse to, if this goes down, it may not. There may be 4 votes for this, there may not be. But if it does go down, to try again. They can do that if this board is willing to go and do that. I know that there's that 1 year, but if something comes back and we collectively say we're willing to accept it, my understanding is that we can. This is a tough vote. And unlike Mr. McCarthy's comment about win-win, I'm not seeing that. I'm trying to, if Carmeuse can work with residents, and residents are trying to work with Carmeuse, you'd think that you all can come together and say, yes, we're all satisfied. But unfortunately, things keep changing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? We ready to vote? Supervisor Lofton.
First, let me say I appreciate all the supervisors, and you all have been involved in this. Thank you very much for your input in dealing with the citizens in Carmeuse. It's been a great help, I think, to get us to this point. To the citizens, to the homeowners out there, thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for conversing with me and emailing me, trying to get this thing nailed down to where it's our best possible product. As I said from the beginning, not everybody's going to be happy. Not everybody's going to get what they want. A couple of points I'd like to make, and that is when we're talking about the loss of value in the homes, the quarry encroaching on a residential neighborhood. The quarry has owned that land since, or some iteration of that quarry has owned that land since 1954. I don't think there's any houses out there except one that I can know of that were built in 1954. I did my due diligence. I knew who owned the land around there. I knew the quarry owned that land. And in my mind, it says, gee, what's a quarry going to do with land? They're going to mine it. So I'm not sure, I think it's a reasonable statement to say the quarry is encroaching on the residential. I think that's just a natural outgrowth of residential growth, and a commercial that was established, well-established for over 50 years. But I do and am sympathetic to some of the concerns that the residents had. I was given a list after a meeting and talking to several people. I was given a list of 11 items that the residents would like to see addressed. And through the back and forth with Carmouche and the residents and some of the supervisors, narrowed that list down, thought we had everything that the residents wanted addressed. But what I'm hearing is if the supervisors and the residents want to live by the old proffers, that I don't believe say have any working hour restrictions at all. No. Correct. I don't think they have a lot of protections in those old proffers that you now say, I'd rather have that than all the safeguards and protections that we've been able to work out. If that's what the residents want, then I'm sure the supervisors will give you what you want. There is no turning back. There is no turning back. I doubt that Carmouche is going to nullify the permit that they're going to get to start the construction of those berms under the old proffers. But if that's what the residents wants, then truly I think the Board of Supervisors will give it to you. So that's why I will vote, because I think what we have now is better than what we had. And so if I'm wrong, then you will be enjoying it. That's all I have to say.
Chairman.
Yes, sir?
Mr. Lofton, just so you know my thoughts process, you're right on the time and the other items. Then it becomes down to the 10-year time frame for trees to grow versus 2 years. And as I said earlier, if we'd been able to work this out earlier, it might be different, but that's just the other side of it. This is just not a good situation, in my opinion.
Are we ready? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
No.
Supervisor Wells?
No.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Nay.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes no. Motion fails. You will give me just a moment.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williams, we voted on the amendment, but we did not vote on the amended motion.
We didn't
Shouldn't-
vote, we didn't have an amendment.
Shouldn't-
No,
The motion was
Mr.
made
Lofton
to include the
His
language.
motion
included the amendment. Mr.
I'm not
Lofton,
talking about this, I'm talking about the prior item.
oh,
Oh,
The budget.
Oh, you're right.
We did not vote on the amended motion.
Yeah.
We voted on the amendment.
to,
And should we correct that?
the motion was a motion to amend it to consider it at the next board meeting.
Yes.
If that was the motion, then we need to vote on the underlying
The amended motion.
amended motion, which is to
Which was my
consider it
fault,
at the
and I
next board
apologize,
meeting.
but that's, so, that we're all clear, we're going back to the budget and the amended motion, just what we will be voting on now, which was to delay the decision until the next board meeting. Are we all clear?
So a yes vote means that we will delay, and a no vote means we will not delay?
That's correct.
I'm sorry. I thought we already voted on that.
We voted on the amendment, but not the amended motion, which is my fault. I'm sorry for the confusion. Sorry to have to back up, but we're going to fix it.
Can we have a restatement of the motion then?
The motion that we're voting on now is the amended motion to delay the decision until the next board meeting.
Okay.
We all clear? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
No.
And the chair votes aye. The motion carries. I apologize for the confusion and the backpedaling. Mr. Chairman, sir, that looked painful.
Mr.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible if we could have a quick stretch break before we go into this
I'm
last?
fine with
For
that.
just a few minutes,
A
please?
few moments. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Jeez, thanks, Judy.
Gentlemen, back away, please.
They're not defunct. It exists. They're using a trade name.
Thank you.
Understood. We got to continue.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Members of the board. This conditional use permit before you tonight is a conditional use permit 0718 of Winchester 101 LLC. It's for the revisions, the conditions of conditional use permit 1396 submitted to change the hours of operation.
This property is located at 4780 Northwestern Pike. It's in the Gainesboro Magisterial District, and it's currently zoned RA. This is, the proposal is to extend an existing CUP to change the hours of operations to 24 hours. If I could turn your attention to the map on your left, I think most of you are probably familiar with this out on Route 50, the Hoe Creek Market. This is a sort of an aerial photograph to give you the layout of the property. This operation was a country store that was approved by the Board of Supervisors on 1996, December 11th, for a country store. Currently, this country store has an operation, or excuse me, hours of operation as noted in condition 7 of the original conditional use permit. And the permitters of hours of operation of the market will be from 5 a.m. to midnight. The applicant is requesting to amend condition 7 of the CUP to allow the business to be open for 24 hours. The planning, it says to the Planning Commission, but it's actually to the Board of Supervisors. This went to the Planning Commission at their June 6th meeting. The Planning Commission at that time recommended denial of the conditions. The only condition changed on this conditional use permit, and I'm going to read them for the record, what's out there now, was approved by the Board of Supervisors in 1996, was number 1, a site plan must be submitted and approved for the proposed addition prior to any construction activity. Number 2, any future use of facility or change of use require a new conditional use permit. Number 3, all review agency comments and requirements should be complied with at all times. Number 4, at the time of the submittal of site plan, a buffer should be installed along the property line adjoining the residence to reduce light pollution, sound pollution, and able to catch blowing debris. Number 5, if an external speaker is used for a drive-through window, the volume must be controlled so that is not to be a nuisance to adjoining residents. Number 6, a required screen to the east of the store may be dense low screen. It will capture any blowing paper debris that escapes the market. And number 7, this is the condition when it's highlighted on the screen to the left, is it may be open for the hours of operations may be 24 hours. Again, to reiterate, the hours today, as we speak today, which is operating, is from 5 a.m. to midnight. And again, the Planning Commission recommended denial. Now, for the record, Mr. Chairman, as what's in your agenda, the applicant actually requested a postponement as to address the items that were brought up at the June 6th Planning Commission meeting. Now, there's some lag time, and I'm going to explain a little bit. Obviously, Ms. Murphy's going to explain a little more what happened between the time that you've got that memo from staff. Her letter came in the office. As one gentleman was saying, I was on vacation, so I didn't get to address letter. I gave it right to the applicant, and that's what the applicant, as you see by the date on the 20th of July, the lag time, I was not in the office to address it. I addressed it with the applicant, that there was other issues other than the hours of operations coming up, that you're in violation of possibly your conditional use permit that could be brought before this board for revocation. They asked permission, and they're not here tonight. They asked it to be continued or postponed, and staff is going to work with them and address the issues that were brought up in the letters from the manor fees. So I just want to make sure we understood what that time period was. The staff just didn't, I wasn't in the office. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions that you or any board members may have on this amendment to the conditional use permit. I think it's 1396, excuse me.
0718.
Yeah, that's 18, I'm sorry, yes, sir. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to Mr. McCarty first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
The application that was included in our packet had the receive date stamped on it, but it was stamped over the county seal, so I was unable to determine what the receipt date was on that application. What date did we receive the application for this amendment?
It was, I'd have to, bear with me, please, sir. Sir, I cannot make that out either. However, the submittal date for it to be heard at the June 6th meeting was 5/11/18, so it had to be for that.
I appreciate that. One then quick follow-up. Do you know, off the top of your head, did the application come in before or after your letter of April 2nd to them stating that we would schedule this for revocation?
It came after, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
Okay. Are there any other violations of the existing conditional use permit on the site to your knowledge?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Another follow-up question. I noticed in the Planning Commission packet, in their discussion, that there was a mention that this was the only time that there had been a sort of a disciplinary action taken saying we're going to schedule this for revocation. There was only one incident of that. To your memory, has there been complaints made over the years related to these issues?
Yes. At this site, there's been complaints since it first was approved. As I'm going to move forward to this zoning administrator and this staff. Yes, the complaint came in from the adjoining property owners of Ms. Manfrey, and we've talked. We did investigate it. We did send a letter out. The revocation process, and just to fill the board, I think we've only done we've had revocation hearings. What staff usually does is send a letter, have them have 30 days to go in compliance, or we set up a date. Then the date that goes to the planning commission comes here. This applicant, after got the letter for the 30 days, started that process. Now, was there some lag time in that? Yes, and Ms. Humphrey's going to bring that up. We'll bring up that, not to prolong and let the other folks talk, her letter that came into us, it did address other issues that staff will have to address of violations.
And were there any other complainants besides the Menifees?
There were speakers at the planning commission, and I believe in the minutes, there were the same issues, and those issues were, what you're looking tonight is the 24 hours. Okay, that's what the applicant was cited for. These other issues that came in, we would have to go ahead and cite them for violations. As you're well aware of, well, I guess, Mr. McCarthy, you should be well aware of that. What staff usually does on conditional use permits, yes, there are conditional use permits that gives you a right to operate, as you know, with the conditions. Once those conditions are violated, staff does give time to work out with the applicant. If the applicant, and the one that I can remember of that this board last did, and Ms. Menifee, who actually did her research, was asking about revocations. It's in her letter. We've only revocated one out of the 5 that came up because we worked with the applicant. The one we did was the Mr. Day would remember, the van man on Route 7. The other applications were violations of older conditional use permits. They either came in compliance, and it was just dropped at that point.
And to the best of your memory, for the one that there was a revocation hearing, did they at any time file for an amendment to the CUP prior to the revocation?
They did, the one that we're talking about, the motor service did not, because it had the reason it was a zoning violation of their conditional use permit. The other 4, they did.
They all did. And last question, how far back in your memory, to the best of your memory, have you been receiving periodic complaints about issues at this location?
Myself and your predecessor twice before had been out there. I was the only time I was aware of anything, though I will say that there has been an issue out there since 1997 that different owners have rectified, and it just moved up today to 2018.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions, Mr. Chairman? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to comment concerning this application? Yes, ma'am. We could have your name and magisterial district, please.
Good evening. I'm Robin Menifee. My husband and I are in Gainsborough, and we're adjacent property owners, as was just established. I do have a couple requests, and I'll start first with respect to the current application. We do request that it be denied, and we also request that a denial just isn't enough, that it needs to be defined what is closed. So this is a very high intensive use. It's currently at 79% of the available hours in a day, and they're requesting to go to 100%. To give you an idea, on Friday, June 15th, from 3:45 to 4:45, there were 127 cars that entered, which of course left. I should say vehicles, because everything that has a trailer behind it, or a truck, or a dump truck, or any type of truck and semi-trucks come onto that property. The next hour, from 4:45 to 5:15, was 179 vehicles. So this is high-intensity use. It is a truck stop. We've just got to call it what it is. Both of our properties are in Devlin Estates subdivision. We did know that they were going for approval for the CUP. We're not against having a business beside us. We had no problems with the business before. Once the expansion came in '96, it's been a nuisance. It has been scope creep. There have been violations. We did send letters last year, so there have been other things that we have tried to bring up and deal with. As far as the hours, secondly, the service is a convenience. It's not an essential. If somebody does have an emergency, alternative service providers are available 24 hours in locations where zoning designates it. 4.3 miles to Round Hill Shopping Center, 5.2 miles to Walmart, and 5.3 miles to 7-Eleven. We ask that definition of closing, what is closed, because obviously, since the Planning Commission and even since getting that letter, as you saw, because it was in the agenda, they obviously are still stretching what those hours are. Canopy lights, fuel pumps closed, lock and gate them, do whatever, lights out, no deliveries, no overnights, trucking and trailer idling. So somewhere we need a definition of what things are. Secondly, especially because there's a site plan attached to this application, it's very concerning what is unknown. And that has really got us where we are today, because we were actually advised by the planning department back in '97, it's as good as crayon. It could be made with a crayon because it is just illustrative. And when that happens, we don't know what's inside of that. We can't tell.
It's all right.
Thank you, what something means. There is nothing that is stopping more fuel pumps. That's not considered an expansion by definition. It can be reconfigured, which is what happened before, and there was absolutely nothing to disclose that. It went from servicing 5 vehicles to being able to service 13, where it now has the ability to have 2 semi trucks fueling at the same time. So I've kind of shared enough with that. The second request is the CUP review. We've been 20 years dealing with this, and we've not been able to make any impact. As I listened tonight, and people talked, I don't know if it was a zoning or a CUP, a property owner can come here and say, I live on this store, I run a good business, all I want to do is expand the retail, and I want to add a drive-through and put in a small restaurant. I gave you all pictures. It's nothing like that. And we gave input and thought our biggest concern was a drive-through speaker aiming at our store or our house, having no idea that this could turn into, or that the CUP process, or that the zoning, or any of that could happen. And what we've learned, and you all very well know, is without conditions, without definitions, it's a free-for-all. If it's not limited, it can be gone. And I think we're a case study of a CUP that can go wrong. I don't think owners have any idea what a privilege they have to use their land that way. It's gone through 4 owners. The one who came, and he lived on the property, and he ran a very nice business. He sold it a few years later. It has gone into major businesses. Second owner was part of about 14 different stores. He went bankrupt. It was bought out by a jobber who's one of the larger ones in the East and services like 1,600 different stores. They still handle the fuel side of this thing. This property is also owned, one of many that are owned Northern Virginia and here. So there isn't a buy-in to worrying about what we need, and without conditions, I'm very concerned what's going to happen in the next 20 years. And so kind of in closing, The board didn't see it coming when this was approved. We are very concerned. Intent has limited meaning without words behind it and words that are in that CUP. No one wants to have what we have beside them. I get that. But we're in a subdivision. I think it's out of whack for the zoning. There's been violations. It's been more than just the hours. They've been doing a last-ditch effort to get in compliance before coming to you, but there's still other issues that we have. Water issues, I could go on, and I know my time's up. And I don't know what I've missed. But we do have other issues, and we really need some help. We've been living for this with 20 years. But I want to give you one disclosure in all fairness. We did move away for a little while, or we're not currently there. We moved away when we started doing elder care. So we did live by that store quite a bit. We've moved to 2 different areas of the county, taking care of my parents, and then after they passed, we're now taking care of his dad. So we are completely working on renovating the place and to move back into it. It was built for a retirement home. It's got a lot of sweat equity. It doesn't have capital in it, but it's got a lot of sweat equity in it. So thank you for your consideration on both those requests.
Would anyone else like to speak?
Mary Kay Menifee, and I'm from Gainsborough District also. We live on Devlin Drive. My husband and I have owned a home there for over 20 years. We're 1/4 mile from Route 50, off of Route 50, and about a half a mile as the crow flies from this store, from the Country General Store. Our major concern is is that the business not go to 24-hour operation because of noise pollution. As tractor-trailer trucks slow down to enter the store, they use their Jake brake, and it's a very loud, stuttering noise, which is very much loud enough to wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning with my windows closed and my air conditioner on, which happened as recently as last Tuesday morning. And having that happen on a regular basis is going to be a very impactful thing for our neighborhood. I can only imagine, we're not right on Route 50. There are homes, and our neighbors live right on Route 50, and I can't imagine how that would impact them if they were to have to hear that kind of noise on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak concerning this application? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Brenda Newcomb, and I'm from the Back Creek District. I live directly across from this market, and my husband and I have lived there for 40 years. So we have seen the change in our neighborhood, and the noise and the light pollution from this store is dramatic. I don't know, the lights come in our living room, the bedrooms in the front of our house. I can sit on my front porch and probably read a newspaper because it's so bright at night. And the noise has just gotten terrible. And as Mrs. Menifee just alluded to, the Jake brakes that are used for the tractor trailers to go into that store is just ridiculous. And they have awakened me at nighttime too. So I don't know what needs to be done. And you know, the owners deny that this is a truck stop, but it surely has been turning into a truck stop every single day. And I just really would like something done, especially for the lights. And because now they're using LED lights, and you can see the store a 1/4 mile away when you go across the railroad track and Hog Creek Bridge. So please consider having this all remedied. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? Anyone? Last call? We'll close the public hearing. This is Gainsborough.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny the application and refer this back to Mr. Sharon to schedule for a hearing on revocation.
I've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second. Mr. Chairman.
And the second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Trout.
Can I ask a question first? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
In terms of revocation, you mean just the stipulation of the hours or the entire CUP?
My intention with the motion is a revocation of the entire CUP. They have,
It's a two processes. One, denying the application that's before us this evening. The second is holding a hearing to consider revocation.
Okay.
of the entire CUP, not just the hourly.
So that motion will
The
deny
hour one
the,
we're denying.
okay, so we're denying the hours for now
Well,
and
that's
then
the
scheduling
motion.
a
We
hearing.
haven't voted yet.
No, I know, just clarification.
Understood.
Then aye.
We haven't called the vote yet.
Any further discussion?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir?
From my perspective, CUP is a privilege, it's not a right, it's not something that anyone, with our zoning in this county, it's designed to keep certain types of activities within certain zones so that we don't have unforeseen impacts on folks that are living in neighboring areas. The CUP process is, the purpose is to make an exception to that, and it's a privilege that is granted to the owner of the property, so long as they're following, and I may be mischaracterizing it somewhat, Mr. Chairman, but the idea is that it's not to the owner of the property, it's to the property itself. Maybe that's what you were thinking about.
How you getting there?
Just a point of clarification,
Yeah.
not the, because it's a long night. The revocation, and I don't want to, I know you got, the members are in the middle of your discussion. The revocation, just so I understand as your zoning administrator, we will send them a letter. Now, if they're still going to have to come back in front of you. What we've done in the past on these CUPs, and I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, is if the applicant that comes into compliance, if there is a violation out there of the CUP, and also what date do you want? I need a date from you, Mr. McCarthy, or the board, I should say, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, what date we're giving them to come back in front of you, because we do have to go to the Planning Commission first, and then to the Board of Supervisors for revocation. So if I can get a little bit of guidance, staff, revocation is not a problem. We can send them a letter, tell them, here's the date, but I need the date that we're coming back.
Mr. Chairman, I would amend my motion then to include that this be referred to the Planning Commission at the earliest possible date and a hearing set at the earliest possible date.
Yes, I was hesitating because there was a suggestion that if they come into compliance, then the matter doesn't go forward. And I guess my question is, with a condition like violating hours of operation, what is deemed coming into compliance? Because that's great. Tonight they might close, and then we go away, and then the next night they're open again.
So then to finish my amendment.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, Mr. McCarthy.
Sorry, Mr. McCarthy.
My motion is that we hold the hearing regardless of the efforts to come into compliance because of the difficulty in determining that compliance, that the hearing go forward regardless.
Want to give him a time frame?
As soon as possible, at the soonest possible date.
We all good? Now, does second concur?
Yes.
Second concurs. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The CUP process is to allow a privilege to a landowner or to the land to utilize the property in such a way that it wasn't originally zoned. And certain parameters are set in order to ensure that it doesn't have unnecessary consequences or unforeseen consequences to the neighbors. It would appear, and this is the whole purpose of a hearing, is to determine whether or not there have been violations over the years that would render them to have violated the CUP to the extent that we as a board need to determine that they should no longer have that privilege. So I would encourage our board members to start thinking and looking into the information that's been provided to us in advance, because I think it's going to be a very difficult decision, but it's one that I think we need to make. One of the things that bothers me about this process, and it's no reflection on Mr. Sharon's office, I know that this is the process, but for a landowner who has accepted the property subject to the restrictions of the CUP, to violate the CUP, to then be called on for violating the CUP, and the alternative, coming into compliance, to then instead file for a change of the rules bothers me a little bit. I don't like the idea that I've been caught violating the rules. Well, I don't want to follow the rules. Allow me to change the rules. That's not fair to the neighbors. It's not fair to the residents of the county. I don't like that provision. I'll just state that on the record. But again, no reflection on your office. Understand the procedures that are followed, which is why I think this hearing needs to go forward without regard to whether or not they bring it into some form of compliance.
Further discussion? Anyone?
I just have one question.
Yes.
I have a question in regard to light pollution.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, if you could speak to that, because I don't know what our guidelines are regarding that, but it sounds like it is a huge issue.
It is. We do have, our ordinance does have provisions for candlelight, what they call candlelights. I'm not going to get into it. We do have that. One thing I just want to point out, not to reiterate what we've discussed tonight, the site plan that this was approved under, just so we have, and it's in your agenda, the different owners have changed. We did not have any lighting standards at that time, okay, when this was approved in 1996. Not an excuse that we still have light pollution. How staff looks at that it's subjective. With a light meter, what we call overbleed on a piece of property. So if I'm higher, a lot of things playing through where you're looking at it, and that's how we look at it from what that candlelight is on the adjoining property if it spills over. Our ordinance does have that right now, and we do use it, and we do go out with a light meter. When we have mostly parking up in your district, up Amazon would be one of them. They have to, all your site plans that come in today have a photometric plan, which shows where your lighting spills over from an engineer. When this plan was done back in 1996, we did not have that. It's no excuse for what Mr. McCarthy's pointing out, that one of the conditions that was set out was to avoid light pollution, but also one of those conditions was the site plan that you see before you in your agenda that did have different fueling aisles and things of that nature. So that's, I guess a long-winded for you, Ms. Slaughter, but yes, we do go out and look at the, light meters in the building department because we do have that, so.
Go ahead.
I guess as a follow-up to that, since this is such an old application, do we ever review our past applications to bring them into compliance with current day methodology?
No, ma'am, we don't. What we usually have, and it's been brought before you before, that we've had conditional use permits, and Mr. DeHaven, I know will remember this because, again, you were on Planning Commission at the time and now on the board. We used to have a condition in our conditional use permits that they were reviewed or that condition was there. It was thought out that there wasn't a violation out there to revocate one. They just keep moving along, okay? It was felt in policy at that time, and boards way before my time probably, was that, yeah, if the property owner was operating within that parameters, that conditional use permit, there was no issue. If you buy the property and that condition's still there, you need to have that removed. Now, we've brought a few to you, there were older ones that we removed that condition.
Thank you.
Partially, it's a policy issue.
On our part, that we probably need to establish something that updates these periodically.
State code intervenes.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit, not to belabor this, but there was a day and time, and I'm going back quite a ways, where CUPs were reviewed annually and brought back before the board to be reviewed. It got so cumbersome. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of these, so to try and review them and bring them back before the board, many of them had no issues whatsoever, so it was very time-consuming. What we have historically done with any kind of zoning violation is we operate on a complaint basis. If we get complaints on a CUP, we look into it, and if they're violating the conditions, we enforce them and try and get them rectified. If we can't do that, that's when we end up here for consideration of a revocation. It happens very rarely, because most times people will comply when they're confronted with the fact that they're violating a condition of the CUP. But to just carte blanche bring them all back if we don't have any issues is creating a lot of work, and I think that's why we did away with it.
And also, I mean, code or policy permits up to a 20% expansion, et cetera.
Correct.
Which is state code intervened.
Yeah, that is correct. We did change the ordinance.
So that created real problems for us. You take Amazon wants to expand by 20%. Now, they're zoned, but what if they were on a CUP? 250,000 square feet. Okay. Are we ready?
So the vote is to,
We have a motion.
We have a motion, a second, and I thought we finished discussion a couple times.
I am, would you just clarify what that is?
The motion is that we will deny the request to amend, and we will schedule a hearing at the Planning Commission at the first available date to consider revocation.
Thank you, sir. I got it there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We all clear?
I'm clear on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion is unanimous. The application is denied. All right. That brings us to a request for a joint Board of Supervisors Planning Commission meeting. You have the dates in your agenda packet. Please respond to Ms. Phillips by end of business on Friday with dates that you are available so that this process, because we also have to do the same thing with the PC members. So it won't take any longer in the next couple days to get it done than it will in the next couple weeks. So if we could try that, I'd appreciate it. Board liaison reports, are there any?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure it's a liaison report, but in my district, I had a young man come to me personally today with an invitation. His name is Colt Balzerman, and he brought me a handwritten invitation, and I just felt the need to share that invitation with you folks. It won't take me just a minute. It said, "Dear Mr. Wells, hello, my name is Colt Balzerman. I'm an active member of the Sharando FFA. I also compete in career development events, also known as CDEs for the Sharando FFA chapter. So far this year, I've competed in the Dairymen's, Stockman's, and I've won the Junior Tractor Operators, and will also compete in the State FFA Convention for Agriculture Mechanics. We have a family farm right outside of Stevens City. We have a cow-calf operation, and we also have back feeder calves. This year is my 6th year showing at the Frederick County Fair. This year, I have 2 market hogs, 2 market lambs, and 2 market goats. The lambs and goats will be shown Wednesday, August the 1st. The hogs will be shown Thursday, August the 2nd, followed by the auction on Friday, August the 3rd. And I ask you not only to come and support me, but all of my other kids as well that put in hard work to be able to show our animals at the fair. Sincerely, Colt Balzerman." And after receiving that, I wanted to share that with you and say, I think Colt is a great example of the many young people in our community. Congratulations to you, Colt. And thank you to your parents, your extended family, your teachers, your FFA leaders, and others who have guided and encouraged you to set high goals. And I would hope the whole crowd would have been here, but I'd like to encourage all of you and all of Frederick County to support our young people, to attend our Frederick County Fair. Go out, eat hot dogs, chickens, fries, burgers, cotton candy, and please do not miss the deep fried funnel cakes. Those are my favorite. But most of all, stop by the exhibits and visit and thank those people who participate. Again, thank you, Colt Balzerman, nice young man.
And Mr. Wells, I will say Colt was a past student of mine, and he's an excellent kid, so.
Well done. All right, that will bring us citizen comments. Does anyone have anything at all they'd like to share with the board? Yes, sir.
First of all, my name is Alan Morrison from Gainsborough. I would like to thank you for your dedication, your patience, and your endurance. Coming short Pogo, we have found the enemy and he is us. I'm paraphrasing from a very poor memory. What I consider rampant residential growth over the last 15 years is coming around to bite us badly. And I don't see any sign of reining that in. And I see this problem that we're facing with Ayler only continuing and getting worse. Second point is, what do words mean? The word integrity has been bashed about here several times tonight. Workarounds. What do words mean? I can have a definition of a word, and I could talk to Mr. Wells about it, and his definition would be different, and he would attack my integrity. Both of us, in our own minds, are absolutely right. This is the new normal. Words do not have definite meaning. Words mean what we want them to mean at the moment we mean them. There is no longer absolute truth. Truth is what benefits me. And until we as a society can come back to solid definitions of words, phrases, and what truth is, the discussions, the debates, the disagreements that we have are only going to get worse. Good people with different viewpoints can say the same thing with entirely different meanings, and we are no longer able to communicate efficiently. And if you go to any counselor for relations, number one issue in marriage issues is communication issues. That is expanding dramatically to almost all aspects of our society. We've got to be aware of it, and we've got to be very careful individually on how we say words and what we mean by them, and really truly understanding the words we're using and what they really mean. So this is kind of a dark prophet's dire warning of what we're facing coming up, and some of the debates that we have will only get worse. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
Give you one
You
more
wouldn't
shot
dare.
tonight. Y'all know who I am. I've been talking enough tonight, but George Hughes, Gainesboro.
Yes, sir.
But I'm going to tell you, I'm really disturbed by most of what went on tonight. And the reason why is we keep going back and cutting off because some little area is upset. And I don't care about the Sunoco station on 522, but an example. How much of your nose are you willing to cut off when we can't afford what we got now? And you all ready to jump on the bandwagon to cut your nose off, close down a business. I don't know what it turns in, maybe $100,000 a year to the county? I don't know, but I know that I saw a few years ago that the Flying J turned in excess of $1 million. Can you afford to turn it down? And it's the same with the school. We go, and I know it's a done deal, and I have no quarrel that the school needs to be done. That's not the point. The point is the way they're going about doing it is that you gave them a blank check to do whatever they please with no control, no nothing. The school, I keep going back to Frederick County, they could refurbish that for a whole lot less than $45 million and do the same thing. You know, we're not paying attention to the money side of this equation. And they talk about, well, they changed the things. Where I bought my land, I had a farm next door to me. They subdivided it. And our planning commission and the health department in their wisdom divided 100 acres into 15 lots and put all the septic systems on one lot up on the top of the mountain. Now, can I go back and say, you all need to change that damn subdivision because it doesn't suit me? Sure don't suit me to have trashy houses being built next to me. So somewhere along the way, you guys got to bite the bullet and say, hey, this is it. like the quarry's been there for long before any of that development out in that area. The same with the quarry up at Stonewall. It's all the same. You can't move next door to a business and not expect that something to go wrong. If you go out, move out next to the new warehouse up here, Amazon, you're going to get trucks up the gazoo 24/7, 365 days a year, and I will guarantee somebody's going to be in here complaining about truck traffic before the year is out. And where do you draw the line? What's Amazon worth to you?
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anyone else? Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone's time and attention.